Chapter 15. When Ouyang Shuo and his party passed through the village entrance, the villagers curiously sized up the piglets in the cages. These piglets were only half a month old. Their fur was brown and yellow with black stripes on their backs. They were very cute. On the way, he had checked the attributes of these piglets. Mutated baby wild boar, baby born from a wild boar king, and a mutated female wild boar. It has strong adaptability, delicious meat, and a growth period of 3 months. Before returning, Zhao Duong had already arranged for people to build the pigsty. The pigsty was built behind the canteen, making it convenient for feeding. The pigsty was divided into an inner and outer den. The inner den was where the wild boars ate and slept. It was 35 meters long and 25 meters wide. The outer den was where the wild boars could exercise, bask in the sun, and drink water. There was a water trough, which was 15 times the size of the inner den. The inner and outer dens were all made of hay, making it easy to keep the pens dry and clean. When Ouyang Shuo brought the militia to the pigsty, Cui Yingyu and Zhao Duong were already waiting there. Behind the two of them stood a middle-aged man in his 30s. He had an honest look on his face and appeared to be rather reserved. According to Yingyu's introduction, the man's name was Zhu Baokai. In his original village, he was a famous pig-rearing expert. This time, he was chosen by Cui Yingyu to be in charge of the wild boar taming. Ouyang Shuo trusted Yingyu's judgment. He directly handed the wild boar taming technique manual to Zhu Baokai and said warmly, "Master Zhu, I'll leave the task of wild boar taming to you. I hope you can put in more effort to breed good wild boar breeds for the territory. Wild boar breeding is a core industry of the territory. At the right time, we need to expand the scale of breeding and establish a wild boar farm. I hope that you can be the first director of the farm, Master Zhu." Zhu Baokai was no longer as reserved when he saw how easygoing the Lord was. He was full of confidence when he talked about the pig-rearing techniques he was best at. He said solemnly, "Don't worry, my lord. Let's not talk about anything else, but I have some experience with pig-rearing techniques. Look at these little piglets. They're all strong and healthy. It's obvious that they're of the best breed. This makes me even more confident." After handing over the pig-rearing matters and greeting Yingyu, Ouyang Shuo returned to his office. As soon as he sat down, Gu Xiuan walked in. Ouyang Shuo invited him to sit down, indicating that he had something to say. Gu Xiuan straightforwardly said, "Sir, I've met with the heads of the 3 divisions today to decide on the distribution of the 5 categories of workers: agriculture, workers, fishermen, shepherds, and craftsmen. Please examine it, sir." "Oh, that's pretty efficient. Tell me, how exactly did you divide it?" "Out of the 130 farmers in the territory, there are 39 farmers. They are led by the Department of Agriculture and are in charge of cultivating the farmland. The number of workers remained unchanged at the original 40, and they were placed under the management of the Supplies Reserve Department. 25 fishermen were assigned to each household. When there were enough fishing boats tomorrow, they would start fishing. They would also be placed under the management of the Reserve Department. For the time being, there were only 2 herdsmen in charge of rearing wild boars. There are 24 craftsmen. At this stage, their main task is to build the salt pans under the leadership of the salt pan supervisor, General Shi. Ouyang Shuo pondered for a moment and then asked, "Do you know the progress of the construction of the fishing boats at the shipyard?" "According to my understanding, it takes 50 units of wood to build an ordinary fishing boat, and each boat can carry 2 fishermen out to sea to fish. Based on the current scale of the shipyard, we can build 1 fishing boat a day." The first fishing boat that was built today was requisitioned by General Shi to transport the personnel and materials for the construction of the salt pans. Gu Xiuan was clearly well prepared. As the territory's secretary, it was one of his basic duties to understand the latest developments in the territory. "Not bad. We will implement this distribution plan. Also, from tomorrow onwards, all the refugees, except for the special talents, will be assigned to the salt pans division. At the same time, apart from the 5 categories of personnel, there will be a separate salt business. Household information and military records are equally important and must be kept confidential. The salt pans division will also be under military control. After I come down, I will explain this matter clearly to General Shi. Also, Xiuwen passed down the message. From tomorrow onwards, the meetings will be held once a week. The number of personnel participating in the meetings will also be fixed. In principle, only the officers in charge of each division can participate in the meetings. If there is a need, you can bring 1 or 2 assistants to attend the meetings. If there is anything, you can report to me directly. Gu Xiuwen nodded. Seeing that the sir had nothing else to say, he tactfully retreated. The next morning, Ouyang Shuo stopped Shi Wansui, who was about to leave, and asked about the progress of the salt pans. Although Shi Wansui was a general, he was familiar with military books and was literate. Even in an unfamiliar field, his thoughts were still clear. He replied without hesitation, "Reporting to my lord. Yesterday, I studied the Seaside Salt Drying Technique Manual, and I have some understanding of salt production. According to the manual, an average of 2 mu of salt pans will require 1 salt worker, and each mu of salt can produce an average of 500 units of salt per month. Due to the limited manpower, I suggest that we build 100 mu of salt pans in the first phase. Also, according to my rough estimation, the entire beach can be used to create nearly 10,000 mu of salt pans." Ouyang Shuo calculated in his heart. 1 unit of salt was sold for 20 copper coins in the market. In other words, 1 mu of salt could produce a profit of 1 gold coin per month, which was quite a considerable amount. Unfortunately, the production cycle of sea salt was as long as a month. To obtain the first profit, he could not count on the construction of the Level 2 village. Ouyang Shuo knew that the upper limit of a Level 2 village was 500 people, and there was an increase of 300 people. According to the speed at which the territory farmed refugees, the population would be full in 20 days. Like this, there was still no source of funds for the construction of the Level 2 village. It seemed like he had to think of other ways. Shi Wansui stood at the side, looking at his lord in a daze. His face alternated between happiness and confusion. He could not make heads or tails of what was going on. Ouyang Shuo reacted and asked, "When will the first phase of the 100 mu of salt pans be completed? You don't have to worry about manpower. I've already informed Xiuwen yesterday." Shi Wansui's expression relaxed. "According to the current speed, it will be completed by tomorrow afternoon." "Very good. I'll wait for your good news. Go to your work." After sending off Shi Wansui, Ouyang Shuo began his work for the day. Suddenly, another system announcement sounded. System announcement. Congratulations to player Chun Shinjun for becoming the 2nd feudal lord of a Level 2 village in the China region. Achievement points awarded. 1,000 points. System announcement. Congratulations to player Chun Shinjun for becoming the 2nd feudal lord of a Level 2 village in the China region. Achievement points awarded. 1,000 points. System announcement. Congratulations to player Chun Shinjun for becoming the 2nd feudal lord of a Level 2 village in the China region. Achievement points awarded. 1,000 points. The Sky River Financial Group was indeed rich. Chun Shinjun was unsurprisingly the 2nd feudal lord of a Level 2 village in the China region. Ouyang Shuo no longer sighed. He knew that the most important thing now was to do the task at hand. Today, he was prepared to do nothing but one thing. That was to visit all the skilled people in the territory and encourage them to recruit apprentices. Among these skilled people, senior shipwright Zheng Dehai had already recruited 4 apprentices, so there was no need to visit them. Beginner carpenter Zhao Yufeng and beginner stonemason Zheng Shanpao were both classified as civil officials and were no longer suitable to recruit apprentices. Pomo Air, on the other hand, recruited 2 young merchant apprentices, 1 male and 1 female. The male apprentice was called Qian Li Fei. He was originally the bastard son of a landlord. After his village was ransacked by bandits, he drifted to Shanghai village. The female apprentice was called Du Xiaolan. She was also the youngest daughter of a small merchant family. Pomo Air sympathized with her and brought her along to teach her carefully. The 2 of them were temporarily arranged by Pomo Air to be her assistants in the supplies reserve department. The first person Ouyang Shuo visited was Dr. Song, who lived in the small courtyard. As the first skilled person in Shanghai village, He had yet to recruit a single apprentice. This made him a little dissatisfied. He thought to himself, I provided him with good food and drinks, and even let him live in the Lord's mansion, which is the symbol of power in the territory. But you old man, other than occasionally going out to gather medicinal herbs and concoct some medicine, you haven't done anything else. When Ouyang Shuo entered, Dr. Song was leisurely reading a medical book in his room. When he saw Ouyang Shuo enter, he said indifferently, I didn't know you were coming. Please don't blame me for not going out to greet you. May I know why you have come to find me? Seeing Dr. Song's attitude, Ouyang Shuo felt even more uncomfortable. But now that he had a favor to ask, he could only patiently say, Recently, the territory has been busy. I have neglected you. Please don't blame me. A trace of emotion flashed across Dr. Song's face. He said, Sir, you speak too seriously. This old man is just an idle savage. There is nothing wrong with staying alone. As the head of a village, Sir should naturally focus on government affairs. This time, Ouyang Shuo finally understood. He also found the crux of the problem. It seemed that this old man was not as indifferent to fame and fortune as he appeared to be. The few polite words he said were obviously to be listened to the other way around. His meaning was also very clear. Living in the same small courtyard, the others have found an official position, leaving this old man alone. When I first came, you, the Lord, treated me with great respect and concern. Now that you have other helpers, you don't care about me anymore. After so many days, you didn't even greet me. Even that girl Chui Yingyu is so busy that her feet don't leave the ground. She doesn't have time to see me. This old man has become a transparent person. I'm not even as good as the second child. How can I not be angry? I didn't expect it. I didn't expect it. This old man looks like an immortal, but his heart for fame and fortune is actually so heavy. That's fine. It's fine as long as you have it. I'm just afraid that you're really carefree and don't know where to start. Thereupon, Ouyang Shuo faintly smiled and casually said, Soon, the territory will set up a specialized medical institution called the Imperial Hospital. It will be fully responsible for the territory's medical affairs. In order to establish the Imperial Hospital as soon as possible, we must have enough doctors. Old Mister is like a wild crane and leisurely clouds. However, there are few talents in the territory. There is no one to share my worries. Dr. Song was really moved. He said in a deep voice, Sir, please don't be like this. This old man is indebted to Sir's care, so I should share your worries. Although this old man is not talented, I can still teach 3 or 4 apprentices. Ouyang Shuo laughed. Good. With old Mister coming out, I have no worries. After settling this old man, it was much easier to find other skilled people. As for the junior blacksmith Li Taizhu and the junior chef Li couple, Ouyang Shuo promised to arrange a small courtyard for them to live in at the right time. The husband and wife immediately agreed to recruit 2 apprentices each. As for the peddler Li Fugue, he had already recruited an apprentice yesterday, so he didn't need to do anything. Today, Ouyang Shuo promised to build a woodworking workshop for the intermediate carpenter Lu Guangji. At the same time, he gave him the guide to making chariot technique manual he bought from the market to study. He immediately agreed to recruit 2 apprentices. After a round of persuasion, Ouyang Shuo's mouth was dry. However, it was all worth it. In an instant, the territory gained 10 apprentices. Adding the voluntary recruits, the territory had a total of 17 apprentices. After these apprentices finished their apprenticeship, the territory's talents would usher in a small explosion. Chapter 16. Over the next 3 days, China's system announcements rang nonstop. Feng Qingyang, Feng Xiuhuang, and military kill ripper of the 6 hegemons of Handan City had all upgraded their territories to level 2 villages. Only Wolf Warrior, who was the representative of the younger generation of the military, was not like the other 5 who could use credit points in real life to purchase game coins from other players. Thus, his village had yet to be upgraded to level 2. Everything was peaceful in the territory. The carpentry workshop promised to carpenter Lu Guangji had also been completed. Under Zhao Dexin's leadership, The Ministry of Agriculture and Reclamation had successfully cultivated 500 mu of simple farmland in the northern part of the territory near the Friendship River. Simple farmland. After weeds have been removed, the farmland has been treated simply and can be used to grow various crops. The construction of the salt pans had also been completed under Shi Wansue's supervision. 40 salt workers were already stationed in the salt pans and began to bring seawater into the salt pans, using sunlight to dry the salt. Ouyang Shua had also officially named the salt pans the Northern Twilight Salt Pans. As for the wild boars, Zhu Baokai did not disappoint. After a short period of discomfort and panic, the 12 piglets had completely adapted to life in the pigsty. It was only a matter of time before the wild boar breeding would become a new industry in the territory. Gaia Year 1, January 14th, 8 a.m. All the core members of Shanghai Village were already seated in the meeting hall, waiting for the historic moment. After Gu Xiuan registered the last 8 refugees from the Level 1 village, Ouyang Shua did not bother to look at their information. He silently chanted for the territory to level up. With a flash of white light, a golden stone tablet slowly rose from the ground in the middle of the meeting hall. Ouyang Shua pressed his right hand on the front of the stone tablet, and the system notification rang out. System notification. Testing the conditions for Shanghai Village to level up. Condition 1. The population has reached the maximum population limit of 200 people. Requirements met. Condition 2. All the basic structures have been completed. Requirements met. Condition 3. The feudal lord must be at least a level 2 baron. Requirements met. System notification. Congratulations to player Wu for establishing Shanghai Village. All the conditions for leveling up have been met. Do you wish to level up? Level up. On the stone tablet, the golden light once again shot up into the sky and exploded in the air, turning into a golden halo that spread out in all directions. The halo continued to extend to the borders of the territory before disappearing once again. System notification. Congratulations to player Wu for becoming the 6th feudal lord of China to level up to a level 2 village. Reward. 600 achievement points received. System notification. Congratulations to player Wu for becoming the 6th feudal lord of China to level up to a village. Reward. 600 achievement points received. System announcement. Congratulations to player not wearing anything for becoming the 6th overlord of a level 2 village in China. Achievement points awarded. 600. This time, Wu had been defeated by Ouyang Shua 6 of the Wolf of War of the War. The players were of Wu. The players were all guessing who this player called that man, without clothes, was to be able to challenge the position of the 6 lords of Handan. It had been half a month since Earth on 1E server had been launched. The identities of the 6 tyrants of Handan City have been gossiped about by countless players. They have also started to surface and are no longer as mysterious as they were at the start. Dragon, Wu 1 Heroes, Wu 1 6 Kings Wang. The China server was never short of ambitious players. Moreover, the significance of Earth 2 and World was more than just a game. Even those ambitious people with considerable influence in real life did not dare to have any designs on the status of the 6 powers of Handan. Now, Ouyang Shua has successfully defeated a member of the 6 tyrants of Handan. This caused those ambitious people to become restless, and the situation in the China region suddenly became complicated and confusing. In the Red Blood village near Jianya City, a burly young man with a determined face sat in the village chief's office. His face was dark. He was Wolf. He said angrily to another young man beside him, F***CK, we can't be too cautious. Log off now and buy game currency at all costs. Yes. At the same time, in the Hegemen village near the Chuanzhou prefecture, a middle-aged man with thick eyebrows and big eyes smiled mischievously when he heard the system notification. He muttered to himself, someone actually defeated the 6. It looks like they are not invincible. It looks like my Hegemen village is going to live up to its name. In an instant, a storm was brewing inside and outside the game. At this time, Ouyang Shua did not have time to care about what others thought. He had not finished upgrading his territory. System notification. Congratulations to player Wui Jian Shanghai Village for leveling up to a level 2 village. The Lord's residence has automatically leveled up. In addition, the player can choose one of 3 village-level basic buildings. System notification. 3 buildings have been randomly selected. They are the village's ancestral hall, the village's private school, and the village's granary. Please choose. I choose the village's granary. System notification. The building is being automatically generated. Please check for yourself. A white light flashed, and the golden tablet slowly sank into the ground again. After instructing everyone to wait a while, Ouyang Shuo took the opportunity to look at the village's attributes. Territory: Shanghai Village, Level 2 Village. Lord: Wui, 3rd rank Viscount. Title: None. Popular support: 80. Public security: 75. Territory population: 200/500. Refugee spawn rate: 10. 1 plus 50 equals 15 refugees per day. Territory area: 50 square kilometers. Territory special characteristics: refugee attraction rate increased by 50, special talent attraction rate increased by 20, crop yield increased by 50, production skill proficiency increased by 20, army soldier level increased by 20. Territory talent breakthrough success rate increased by 10. Territory capital: 10 gold coins. Territory resources: 31,000 grain units, 180 wood units, 800 stone units, 300 iron ore units. Territory army: militia squad, 10 people. Territory industry: Northern Twilight Salt Field, 100 acres. Politics index: 25 out of 100. Determines administrative efficiency. Relates to popular support. Economy index: 10 out of 100. Determines trade prosperity. Relates to tax revenue. Culture index: 10 out of 100. Determines educational attainment. Relates to the quality of residence. Military index: 20/100. Determines military strength. Relates to stable relationships. Basic buildings: village lord's mansion, primary market, simple fence, village canteen, village toilet, wooden residential courtyard. 10. Primary blacksmith shop, primary grocery store, primary lumberyard, primary quarry, simple farmland, 500 acres, primary military camp. Pigsty, carpentry workshop. Special buildings: ferry, pier, primary shipyard, hidden building. Mazu temple, sealed. List of basic buildings: Frowny Face Village Ancestral Hall, a place to worship ancestors. Construction requirement: Ancestral Hall building blueprint, 80 wood units, 40 stone units. Construction time: 1 day. Village Medical Center, a place for villagers to seek medical treatment. Construction requirement: primary doctor, medical center building blueprint, 60 wood units, 20 stone units. Construction time: 1 day. Village Private School, an early childhood education institution in the village. Construction requirement: elementary scholar, private school building blueprint, 150 wood units, 80 stone units. Construction time: 2 days. Primary Martial Arts Center, a place for amateur martial arts practice in the village. Construction requirement: martial artist, martial arts center building blueprint, 100 wood units, 100 stone units. Construction time: 2 days. Village Granary, a warehouse for storing grain. Construction requirement: granary building blueprint, 400 wood units, 200 stone units. Construction time: 3 days. Description: this building has been randomly generated. Primary tailor shop, a shop that makes clothes for people. Construction requirement: primary tailor, tailor shop building blueprint, 40 wood units, 20 stone units. Construction time: 1 day. Primary mining field, increases the rate of ore collection, producing an average of 2 units of iron ore per person per day. Construction requirement: 40 wood units, 20 stone units. Construction time: 1 day. Simple Arrow Tower, a primary defense facility with weak defense. Construction requirement: 80 wood units, 10 stone units. Construction time: 1 day. After a simple analysis, he realized that there were 3 conditions to upgrade the village to a level 3 village. The first condition was the population limit. There was no other way to increase the village's population limit. He could only rely on spawning refugees. It was estimated that it would take 20 days to reach the maximum population limit. Population was Shanghai Village's biggest weakness. This was the congenital deficiency of individual players. The third condition, the title of nobility, had already been met. There was no need to worry. The second condition was the most difficult. There were 3 small conditions for the construction of the basic building. Firstly, there was no need to worry about the construction materials. The current storage was enough. Secondly, the basic building required special talents. With the current territory's special talent attraction rate increased by 20%, Ouyang Shu only needed to wait patiently. The biggest problem was the building blueprints. The basic building blueprints of a level 2 village were sold for 5 gold coins. Ancestral hall, medical hall, private school, dojo, and tailor shop blueprints were sold for 25 gold coins. Ouyang Shu, like the other lords, had to worry about gold coins. After analyzing the village's stats, he finally had time to take everyone to tour the upgraded lord's residence. The courtyard had changed greatly. The area it occupied had almost doubled. The entire courtyard had become more exquisite. The main hall had been expanded from the original 3 rooms to 5. The rooms were also more spacious than before. Even the furniture had been upgraded. In the middle of the main hall was the meeting hall. The floor was no longer made of mud. Instead, it was covered with stone slabs. The east side of the main hall was the village chief's office. What was different was that there was a row of bookshelves in the office. There were many books on them. The east side of the main hall was the administrative office. Now, Gu Xiaowen and the other officials had a fixed place to work. The west side of the main hall was still Ouyang Shua's bedroom. Next to the meeting hall was a dining hall. From now on, the people in the courtyard no longer had to squeeze into the dining hall with the villagers. They could get special meals. The east and west side of the main hall had been expanded from 2 to 4 rooms. Since everyone was here, Ouyang Shua started to rearrange everyone's accommodation. The first room in the east side was still Shi Wansui's. After that, Gu Xiaowen, Zhao Dexian, and Zhao Diwang's rooms were arranged. The first room in the west side was naturally Cui Yingyo's. After that, second child and physician Song's rooms were arranged. The last room was temporarily empty. Additionally, when the medical hall was built, physician Song would move there. For example, Zhao Yufang and Zheng Shanpao had already moved to the lumber yard and the quarry respectively. Chapter 17. After a simple tour, everyone returned to the meeting hall. Shanghai Village had just been promoted to a level 2 village, so everyone had to know what to do next. After everyone sat down, Ouyang Shua went straight to the point and said, "With everyone's hard work, Shanghai Village has successfully been promoted to a level 2 village. Moreover, it is the 6th territory in China to be promoted. This achievement is the result of the hard work of all the villagers and the management of everyone present. It is worth celebrating. Therefore, I have decided to hold a big bonfire party tonight to celebrate, and you will be in charge of the party's preparations." Chuang Yu nodded with a smile. "Big brother, don't worry. Little sister will definitely make this bonfire party lively and bustling. Speaking of which, this is the first time our territory has held such an event. When the time comes, big brother, you must personally perform a performance to liven things up." As soon as Yingyu finished speaking, Shi Wansui took the lead and cheered. Even Zhao Daxian, who was usually a steady man, had a ridiculing look on his face as he joined in the jeering. Ouyang Shua laughed bitterly. "You're tricking me. You're making a fool out of me. However, your idea is very good, and I strongly support it. In my opinion, it is better to have fun together than to have fun alone. Everyone present should prepare at least one performance. Only then will it be lively. Who asked you to jeer? If I don't drag you all down with me, how can I live up to Sir Lord's reputation of being black-bellied?" Chuang Yu covered her mouth and chuckled. Performing a performance was naturally no pressure for her. The expressions of the others were a little ugly and gloomy. This was called lifting a rock only to smash one's own foot. After admiring Shi Wansui's excited face that suddenly turned bitter, Ouyang Shua continued, "Back to the main topic. After the territory has been promoted, there are many things that need to be done. Here, I will make a general arrangement. If anyone has any suggestions, You can bring them up later. First, it is the work arrangements for the construction division. Although the private school, medical center, and other buildings cannot be built due to the lack of blueprints. However, the current task of the construction division is still very important. The primary mine and simple arrow towers that do not require blueprints must be built as soon as possible. The location of the mine must be discussed with the supplies division. 2 simple arrow towers must be built on the 2 sides of the village entrance. In addition, the second phase's 15 small courtyards had to be built as soon as possible. The most important thing is to cooperate with the Saltfield Bureau to carry out the second phase of the Northern Twilight Salt Fields infrastructure construction. The North Twilight Salt Works is the only industry in the territory and an important source of funds in the future. I decided to open up another 400 mu in the second phase, bringing the total to 500 mu. This required a lot of labor, and the household registration office had to actively cooperate. At this stage, the spawned refugees will be prioritized and assigned to the salt works. The total number of salt workers must reach 250 in order to maintain the saturation operation of the salt works. As for the material reserve division, the number of people in the quarry and lumberyard remains the same. After the primary mining site was built, 20 people would be assigned to it. As for the fishermen, the number of people would gradually increase to 30. This time, the militia would be directly expanded to 50 people. The formal organization was to have 10 people in a fire with a squad leader. 5 fires formed a team with a squad leader. The rest of the laborers were all assigned to the Department of Agriculture. The Bureau of Land Reclamation would continue to open up farmland, eventually reaching a scale of 2,000 mu. According to the above arrangements, the Household Registration Office should do a good job of personnel diversion and the corresponding household registration certificates. These are the recent work arrangements. If anyone has any questions, you can raise them now. The chief officers digested the information revealed by Ouyang Shua while giving their opinions or suggestions on the areas they were in charge of. Sherwan Sui was the first to stand up. "My lord, I have something to say. If the militia is expanded to 50 people, we will have to appoint 5 squad leaders. How will the candidates be decided?" Ouyang Shua smiled. "You will recommend the squad leaders and report to me for approval. Try to promote the current veterans first, but don't promote them unconditionally just to take care of the feelings of the veterans." Everything was based on meritocracy. In addition, Zhang Dainiu and Buttface, the 2 squad leaders, can be directly promoted to the position of squad leader. The position of militia captain will naturally be held by you, General. Now that the Northern Twilight Salt Field is on the right track, General can be free and focus on the training of the militia. As for the safety and security of the salt field, Zhang Dainiu and Buttface will each lead a fire militia and take turns to guard it. Sure, Wansui grinned. He was obviously happy that he didn't need to be stationed at the salt field anymore. However, he wasn't a boorish man who was all brawn and no brains. From Ouyang Shua's words, he had already heard a trace of strangeness. He asked directly, "My lord, is there a deeper meaning to this large-scale expansion of the militia?" Ouyang Shua nodded approvingly. "Not bad. The expansion of the militia this time is to deal with all kinds of new security challenges. With the upgrade of the territory, the area of influence will be 25 times the original. The newly added territory needs to be thoroughly swept by the militia to eliminate hidden dangers. More importantly, it is estimated that in half a month, there will be a wild beast riot in the wilderness. At that time, the territory will be attacked by a large number of wild beasts. Therefore, during this period of time, General must not only quickly train the militia into shape. After you come down, you must also draft a detailed battle plan to defend against the wild beasts and submit it to me for review." Sherwan Sui's face turned solemn. "Yes, I promise to complete the task." Then, Ingyu stood up. "Big brother, regarding the arrangement of the number of fishermen, I have a different opinion. We only have 4 fishing boats now, and each fishing boat can only carry 2 people. The shipyard can only build 1 fishing boat a day. Therefore, it will take at least 11 days for 30 fishermen to go out to sea to fish. According to my understanding, On average, a fisherman can harvest 50 units of fish in a day. With so many fish, it is impossible to finish them all. What is Big Brother's intention in making this arrangement? Ouyang Shuo understood and used thoughts. One must know that fish cannot be used as a staple food, and it is not easy to store for a long time. Therefore, it cannot replace the role of food. Regarding this, he had his own plans. What you said is naturally the truth. But have you ever thought that if the fish is salted and dried, the dried fish is not a living thing? Moreover, it is easy to store and can be sold through the market. On the market, 1 unit of dried fish is 15 copper coins. On average, 2 units of live fish can be dried into 1 unit, and 1 unit of salt can be salted to 50 units of live fish. After deducting the cost of salt, a fisherman's day's harvest can create a profit of 355 copper coins for the territory. Before the first batch of salt is produced in the Northern Twilight Salt Works, the territory's construction funds will completely rely on fishing. As for the fishermen who don't have fishing boats, we can arrange for them to salt the fish. Cui Yu finally understood Ouyang Shuo's entire plan. She could not help but admire him greatly. She said sincerely, "Big Brother's plan is thorough. You are far behind me." Ouyang Shuo waved his hand. "You don't have to belittle yourself. I have been worrying about the territory's construction funds recently. I thought about it for a long time before coming up with this idea." Of course, this was not an idea that Ouyang Shuo came up with on the spot. He only said this to comfort her. When he chose to build the village in Lianzhou Basin, he had already considered the whole situation. As a feudal lord who established his territory by the sea, it would be a waste of such a geographical advantage if he could not make full use of the resources of the sea. Salting and salting the dried fish were one of the methods he came up with to accumulate initial capital in the early stages. For this reason, he did not hesitate to spend a large sum of money to purchase the seawater salt drying technique manual and the 3 special building blueprints. This was the advantage of being reborn. While the representatives of the major forces were still painstakingly purchasing game coins with large sums of money, he had already displayed a complete industry to provide a steady stream of construction funds for the territory. This kind of advantage would become more obvious in the later stages. His current industry had just started and the profits it generated were limited, but it was full of potential. Once the scale was expanded, the profits generated would naturally multiply several times. The powerful feudal lords in his previous life had long formed a consensus that if they wanted their territory to be able to develop for a long time, they must establish their own industry. After all, it was less than a year before they could use credits to purchase game coins. Finally, Zhao Dexin stood up and said, "Sir, I have a question. Sir has just arranged for the Department of Agriculture to open up another 1,500 mu of farmland. This is naturally not a problem. The question is, what crops should be planted in these 2,000 mu of farmland? Sir, do you have any plans?" Ouyang Shuo decided to test him and asked in reply, "Let me ask you, Director Zhao, given the climate conditions in Lianzhou Basin, what crops do you think are suitable to be planted?" Zhao Dexin was born a farmer and had been dealing with farmland all his life. He was very clear about the sowing time of various crops. He said tentatively, "At this time, winter has not passed and spring has not arrived. It's not very suitable for planting crops." Ouyang Shuo smiled mysteriously and said, "You're right. However, with the climate conditions in Lianzhou Basin, there's a crop that can be planted in winter, and that's potatoes. Although we've missed the best planting season in November, due to the influence of the sea monsoon, we still have the conditions to plant potatoes. If we start planting now, we can harvest them by April or May at the latest, completely solving the food shortage problem of the territory." Zhao Dexin was slightly stunned and said in shame, "This subordinate is ashamed. I didn't think of this crop." In fact, he couldn't be completely blamed for this. After all, the Zhao family ditch had always been hidden in the Shangri-La, and potatoes were rarely planted in the village. Ouyang Shuo smiled faintly. Therefore, these 2,000 mu of farmland must be planted with potatoes. Also, we must plant the seeds quickly and try to complete the sowing before the end of the month. As for the sprouts, I will buy them from the market." After answering Zhao Dexin's question, Ouyang Shuo announced the end of the meeting since no one else had any questions. After everyone had left, he prepared to go to the primary market to buy some things. Ouyang Shuo only had 10 gold coins left, and he had to reserve 4 gold coins for the militia to change professions. He could only use 6 gold coins. He first spent 1 gold coin to buy enough sprouts to plant 3,000 mu of potatoes. 3,000 mu of potatoes was the largest planting area in Ouyang Shuo's plan for the village level 1 potatoes. Then, he spent 1 gold coin to buy 500 units of salt. This amount of salt was enough for the early stage, and the Northern Twilight salt field could produce salt by itself in the future. With the remaining 4 gold coins, he decided to purchase 4,000 units of rations. Adding on the 31,000 units of food and the fish caught by the fishermen, it was enough to support the territory until it was upgraded to a level 3 village. Ouyang Shuo's pockets immediately became empty after the purchase. After arranging for people to store the purchased materials in the warehouse, he suddenly seemed to have nothing to do. Chapter 18. Just as Pomo had promised, the bonfire party at night was very lively. Everyone gathered at the square in front of the mansion and built a bonfire with firewood. A group of people formed a circle, singing and dancing. Pomo's dancing won the house. Her soft and graceful movements were like the floating clouds in the sky, and also like the drops of water on the clear sky. She was like the fairies in the Dragon Palace dancing on the waves. It could really be said that, treading on the waves with tiny footsteps, who could see her graceful figure at that time? Sure, Wansue's sword dance was equally brilliant. His sword was like a white snake spitting out its tongue, hissing as it cut through the wind, like a dragon shuttling back and forth. Sometimes it was as light as a swallow, and sometimes it was as fast as lightning. It was like a silver light rising from the courtyard, swallowing the blood of the Xiong. Zhao Dexin did not want to be outdone. He led the villagers of the Zhaojia ditch and danced. The beating of the carrying poles had a strong rhythm, and the sound was clear and resounding. It was very lively. The crowd was excited. The sound of the carrying poles and the light and sweet accompaniment of the bamboo pipes, the laughter of the village girls, and the praises of the aunties merged into a wave of joy and happiness, shaking the entire mountain village and stirring people's hearts. Ouyang Shuo sang a modern version of the Luo Shin Fu, which pushed the party to a climax. East of the Luo River, passed down through the ages, a dream in heaven on earth. Meeting in a dream, flying like a graceful dragon. The dragon leads the carriage. The cloud carriage returns to the heavenly palace. The prose of the world is softly recited. Reciting the sacrificial poem, people call it imitating King Xiang's dream. The dream stays on the pillow. The tears wet the towel, staining the beautiful face. The appearance is still the same. The path of immortals and mortals are different. Jiepe still has no end. The wind blows the green history. The Sure family is unknown. Asking today, who remembers the temple, the riverside? Writing a scroll of the Luo Shun to comfort this heart. The fragrant fragrance fades, the beautiful figure. The wind blows the book. The primordial Tao becomes invisible. Asking what is love, it makes people crazy. Goddesses fall. Writing a scroll of the Luo Shun, who still recites in the poem. The green waves leisurely until now. The villagers of Shanghai Village, except for Ouyang Shuo and Shi Wansui, were all homeless people. Today, they were fated to be together. A simple bonfire party alleviated everyone's misery and yearning for each other. It closed the gap between people and united the hearts of the people. The villagers truly treated Shanghai Village as their home. System notice: congratulations to player not have clothes for successfully hosting the bonfire party. The villagers are grateful for the Lord's kindness, and the hearts of the people are united. Popularity has increased by 5. The system had upgraded the sound system at the wrong time. When Ouyang Shuo was still immersed in the lively atmosphere of the party, the damn system had to remind him that it was just a game. Coincidentally, it was already late at night. He returned to his room and logged off. It was already 9 in the morning when he came out of the game cabin. At this time, Binger had already gone to school, and Sun Xiaoya was naturally not at home. He was too lazy to go downstairs. He fried 2 eggs, made a cup of milk, and ate a simple breakfast. Opening the optical computer, there was a new email. He opened it and saw that it was an invitation to a junior high school reunion. The person who sent the invitation was Wan Ping, the class monitor in junior high school. He was also the one who organized this gathering. The general idea was that it had been a long time since everyone had gathered together after graduating from junior high school. It was decided that during this year's spring festival, there would be a reunion at Guifang Garden in Jiaozhou. He hoped that everyone would plan their itinerary in advance and attend. Thinking about it, it had really been 7 to 8 years since he had a reunion with his junior high school classmates. Ouyang Shuo probably couldn't even remember the names of many of them. His memory was starting to blur. At that time, if there wasn't anything particularly important, Ouyang Shuo was prepared to attend. After all, this might be everyone's last reunion. A year later, when they boarded the spaceship for a long journey, he really didn't know how long it would take for them to meet again. Since there was still some time before the reunion, Ouyang Shuo didn't bother about it anymore. He casually opened the game forum and looked at the latest movements of other players. The top discussion post on the forum was about Shanghai Village breaking the monopoly of the 6 bullies of Handan City and becoming the 6th village in China to be promoted to level 2. He roughly looked at the comments and instantly didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was a mess, and there were all kinds of comments. First comment, I dare to bet that not have clothes must be the descendant of some invisible family. Second comment, bet +1. Downstairs, maintain formation. Third comment, invisible my ass. The 2 above must have read too many YY novels. Fourth comment, the person above, I think he just got lucky. Fifth comment, not have clothes. I want to give birth to monkeys for you. Sixth comment, the dinosaur above, appraisal complete. Seventh comment, battling the world. Recruiting members, interested parties, please contact Battling the World. Eighth comment, the person above, advertising, please pay the advertising fee. Thank you. Ninth comment, a trashy guild like Battling the World dares to recruit people. Everyone, don't fall for it. 10th comment, F*CK, the person above, I'm going to kill you. Towards the end, it was completely off topic. Ouyang Shuo speechlessly deleted it and prepared to look at the other popular posts. Unsurprisingly, wolf warriors followed closely behind Lord Chunshin, sending his trusted Blood Wolf to publicly purchase game coins on the forum. Unfortunately, game coins were still in demand, but there was no supply. Didn't you see that Lord Chunshin's chief financial officer had raised the purchase price to 2 credits for 1 copper coin? Another piece of news caught Ouyang Shuo's attention. Among the solo adventurer players, someone had finally obtained a mercenary token and established the first mercenary group in the game, Baleful Blood Mercenary Group. The leader of the mercenary group was called Crimson Romance, a level 21 vigilante, currently occupying the first place on the player level leaderboard. The first mercenary group to be established in the game did not even have a system announcement. From this, it could be seen that Gaia was biased towards lower class players. After browsing for a while, seeing that there was no other useful information, Ouyang Shuo closed the forum. He began to learn about history to recharge himself. When Binger returned from school at night, she was a little resentful that her brother did not wake up to send her to school in the morning. Ouyang Shuo had no choice but to use all his skills and cook a few of her favorite dishes before the little girl's resentment was slightly appeased. Sun Xiaoya saw Ouyang Shuo logging into the game on time every day and was very curious. She asked, hey, is that Earth on 1E really that fun? I asked around, but it seems like no one in our class plays this game. Ouyang Shuo smiled mysteriously. The greatest charm of this game lies in the gameplay of territory building. Also, the game is very realistic. It's not the kind of mindless leveling game that most people don't have the patience to do. If the conditions allow it, I suggest that you play it too. I promise you won't regret it. Sun Xiaoya curled her lips and laughed. Forget it. I'm not a tycoon like you, able to buy a 10 million credit gaming cabin without batting an eyelid. Ouyang Shuo did not force her. This was all he could do. Whether she listened or not depended on her luck. He could not tell her the truth about the game, not to mention whether she would believe him or not. Even if she did, he could not explain how he knew such confidential information. He could not possibly tell her that he had been reborn, right? To make up for his regret in the morning, Ouyang Shua did not go online on time at night. He first accompanied Binger to finish her homework, then told her fairy tales. By the time he coaxed the little girl to sleep, it was already 10 o'clock at night. To him, the game was important, but Binger was the most important. The game was only a means to success. Being with his family was the goal. Many times, we are easily fooled by the appearance of things. If we could not distinguish between the means and the goal, we would only lose ourselves. Moreover, the current Shanghai village had already established a complete organizational structure, and there were people in charge of various affairs. In a short period of time, even if he was not around, the territory would be able to run smoothly. When he went online again, the courtyard was quiet. Everyone had gone out to do their work. Ouyang Shua walked to a corner of the courtyard and played with Heya. Ouyang Shua did not feel at ease letting a wild black wolfhound like Heya run around. Usually, it would be tied up in the courtyard. When he was free, he would take it for a walk in the village. Since he had nothing to do today, Ouyang Shua finally felt a sense of conscience and prepared to take the little guy for a walk in the village. Walking in the village, looking at the small courtyards that rose from the ground, Ouyang Shua felt very gratified and proud. This was a village that belonged entirely to him. He had led everyone from the wilderness, starting from scratch, building a home with every piece of wood and stone. The villagers loved him and were grateful to him for providing shelter and a place to live in the wilderness. His subordinates respected him, admired his foresight, and were grateful for his ability to use people well, allowing them to display their talents on a higher platform. Along the way, the villagers would greet him with a smile when they saw him. Ouyang Shua did not put on airs. He chatted with them about trivial matters and asked them if there were any difficulties in their lives. If there were any difficulties, they must tell him, and he would do his best to help them. The bonfire party last night obviously still had a lingering effect. Everyone was mostly talking about the lively scene last night, how beautiful Pomelo's wave dance was, and how imposing the great general's sword dance was. Of course, our Sir Overlord's singing wasn't bad either. Although the tunes sounded strange, it made people feel that it was beautiful. When they walked to the village entrance, they saw Zhao Duong directing everyone to build the arrow towers. Shi Wansui was also standing at the side, giving advice. For this general with rich experience in war, he obviously had more say in the construction of the arrow towers than Zhao Duxian. Seeing Ouyang Shua, the two hurriedly walked over. The general's voice was always loud and clear. "My lord!" Zhao Duong followed behind him and went forward to greet. "My lord!" Ouyang Shua waved his hand. He was in a very good mood. He smiled and said to Zhao Duong, "No need to be so polite. The construction division moved very quickly. It is worthy of praise." Zhao Duong still held the title of deputy director of the construction division, so he naturally worked hard. He was afraid that if one day he did not do well, the Lord would arrange for a director to come over. Hearing Ouyang Shua's praise, he felt a lot more relaxed. He said modestly, "This subordinate does not dare to be greedy. The arrow towers could be built so smoothly thanks to General Shi's assistance. Without the guidance of the general, we do not know where to start." Shi Wansui never knew what modesty was. He stood aside, smiled, and said complacently, "This is actually nothing. This is just the simplest arrow tower. When I led troops to war before, the barracks I set up were the real, powerful arrow towers." After a pause, Shi Wansui turned to look at Ouyang Shua. "My lord, I have observed the terrain. I suggest that it is best to build an arrow tower at each of the four corners of the fence. This way, the village's defense can be further enhanced. Unfortunately, there are not enough bows and arrows now, so there's no way to train those rookies." Ouyang Shua nodded slightly, looked at Zhao Duong, and said, "Do as General Shi says. The construction division will make overall arrangements." Zhao Duong hurriedly agreed, saying that all the arrow towers could be built within 2 days. Ouyang Shua nodded and did not stay any longer. He took Heya and turned back to the courtyard house. Chapter 19. Ouyang Shua returned to the Lord's mansion, tied up Heya, and walked into his office. As soon as he sat down, Gu Xiuwen, the clerk and manager of the household registration office, walked in with two tall men. One of them was a middle-aged man in his 30s, barehanded. He had a squarish face and a pair of shrewd, deep eyes under his thick, broad eyebrows. His muscles bulged out from his shoulders and arms. The other was a young man in his 20s, holding a long spear and a knife at his waist. His facial features were distinct, as if they were carved. His angular face was unusually handsome, and he looked a little unrestrained. After Gu Xiuwen greeted them, he pulled the two men over and introduced them. "Sir, these two heroes are special talents who just came to the territory today. Let me introduce them to you. These two heroes are a pair of brothers. The elder brother is Lin Yu, and he is an expert in martial arts. The younger brother is Lin Yi, and he likes to play with knives and sticks. He is a beginner general." The Lin brothers took the opportunity to step forward, cupped their fists, and bowed slightly. They said in unison, "This commoner Lin Yu, Lin Yi greets, sir. High-level martial artist. Beginner general?" This time, Ouyang Shua's interest was completely piqued. He said happily, "Two heroes, please dispense with the formalities. It is the Shanghai village's fortune to be able to meet two talents today." He paused for a moment, then continued, "Since you are so capable, are you willing to serve in the army?" Hearing this, the young man, Lin Yi, immediately showed an expression of eagerness, as if he was extremely willing. On the other hand, the middle-aged man, Lin Yu, remained calm, and no one could tell what he was thinking. When Lin Yi saw that his elder brother didn't say anything, he suppressed the excitement in his heart and didn't speak. Ouyang Shua saw this and nodded in his heart. Lin Yu hesitated for a moment, then slowly said, "I shouldn't decline Sir's kindness. However, the skills I've learned are all flowery but not practical and are not suitable for the army. Secondly, I was heavily injured in my early years, and my body still has hidden injuries. I am afraid that I will disappoint Sir's kindness. On the other hand, although my younger brother is a little naughty, he knows some spear and stick skills. If Sir doesn't mind, you can arrange for him to be in the army and strictly discipline him. Although I'm not a talented person, I can still be of service to you." Ouyang Shua nodded slightly. This Lin Yu had a sense of propriety in his speech. He was definitely not a simple martial artist. At this moment, Ouyang Shua didn't want to delve into this matter, so he said with a smile, "Big brother Lin has an unmentionable illness, so it's naturally not good to force him. There is a high-ranking doctor in the village. When he comes down, I will ask him to take a look at Big brother Lin. I just don't know if he can help. In addition, our village is about to build a martial arts school. At that time, we will have to ask Big brother Lin to take charge and teach the villagers some martial arts. Firstly, it would strengthen their bodies, and secondly, it would allow everyone to have a skill to defend themselves. When he entered the wilderness, he still had some ability to protect himself. I hope that Big brother Lin won't decline." At this point, Lin Yu naturally couldn't refuse. Moreover, opening a dojo was in line with his intentions. "This Lin thanks my lord for your care. I dare not disobey." Ouyang Shua laughed and continued, "As for your younger brother, he can take up the post of a squad leader in the militia. I believe that with your younger brother's ability, he will definitely not let you down." Lin Yu and his brother bowed again and thanked him. "Thank you, sir. We will not let you down." Ouyang Shua took the opportunity to check the brothers' attributes. Name, Lin Yu Silver. Identity, Shanghai Village Villager. Occupation, Advanced Warrior. Loyalty, 75. Specialty, Fist Skill Expert. Increases the fist skill power of the residents of the territory by 10%. Remarks, Mysterious Origin. Fist Skill Expert. Current Hero. Because of hidden illness, he was forced to wander. Name, Lin Yi. Dark Iron. Identity, Shanghai Village Militia 3rd Squad Leader. Occupation, Beginner General. Loyalty, 75. Commander, 30 Strength, 40 Intelligence, 20 Politics, 15 Skills. Lin Family Ancestral Spear Skill, total of 12 styles. Equipment. Fine iron spear, ring blade, remarks. Studied the art of war since he was young and practiced spear skills. However, his personality is stubborn and unrestrained. Both brothers were a bit of a pervert. Lin Yu was actually evaluated as a fist skill expert by the system, and his special characteristic was to increase the fist skill power of the entire territory's residents. This kind of special characteristic was very helpful to the territory. Ouyang Shuo guessed that if he could cure his hidden illness, he would at least be a master warrior. Because of this, Ouyang Shuo didn't have much hope for Dr. Song. After all, he was only a high-level doctor. Lin, he was not simple either. Although he was only an iron rank character now, he had his own skills and equipment. He had great potential, and the potential for growth was very good. If he was placed in the army and given to Shi Wansui to train, he would definitely become a great person in the future. Through this period of observation, Ouyang Shuo slowly discovered some of the rules of how the system refreshed the refugees. First of all, at the beginning, such as when the village was being built or when the territory was just leveling up, it was easier to get special talents. When the territory leveling up had more or less gathered the special talents needed, the rest were basically normal farmers, and there were very few special talents. Another thing was that the Gold Village Creation Order's special characteristic was slowly starting to show its power, and from time to time, it could attract high-level talents to join. One had to know that the village level was mainly filled with beginner talents, and Shanghai Village already had 3 high-level talents. If the other lords were to find out about this, they would definitely be envious. For many lords, having a mid-level talent was like a treasure to them. High-level talents were just an extravagant hope. After the greetings, Ouyang Shuo told Gu Xiuan to bring Lin Yu to the barracks. He personally brought Lin Yi to the barracks. As a beginner general, Lin didn't need to change his class. The fundamental difference between a soldier and a general was the number of soldiers they could lead. According to the army structure, the highest a soldier could reach was a captain level 1, which could lead 50 soldiers. 10 squads were a battalion, with 500 people. The captain had to be at least a beginner general. 5 battalions were a brigade, with 250 people. The commander had to be at least a mid-level general. 5 brigades were divisions with 1,000 direct subordinates, totaling 1,350 people. The division commander had to be at least a high-ranking military general. 4 divisions would form an army, with 10,000 people directly under them. There would be a total of 55,000 people, and only a special class general could be the commander of the army. Several legions were a group army with a commander. Only the lord or a general appointed by the lord could be the commander. As a result, the territory's demand for generals would be huge in the later stages. It wasn't realistic to hope for a general to appear from the refugees. The probability was no different from hitting the jackpot, unless they had a strong territory like Shanghai Village. Most of the time, it was through soldiers. The intermediate military camp's job change room allowed level 10 militia to become a stage 1 soldier. At the soldier level, there were no more levels. There were 9 levels. Level 1 to 3 were soldiers, level 4 to 6 were fierce soldiers, and level 7 to 9 were elite soldiers. Normal soldiers needed to advance all the way to level 9 elite soldiers before they could go through the advanced camp's secret room and become a beginner general. It was because of this that Ouyang Shuo paid so much attention to Lin Yi. When the two arrived at the barracks, Shi Wansui came back as well. He handed Lin Yi to Shi Wansui and prepared to leave after giving some instructions. Unexpectedly, Shi Wansui suddenly stopped him and said solemnly, "My lord, I have something to report." Ouyang Shuo stopped and asked curiously, "Oh, what is it?" "It's like this. I just received a report from a patrol team. When they were patrolling the territory, they unexpectedly discovered a bandit camp." Ouyang Shuo was shocked. It was finally here. Bandits and bandits were known as the 2 scourges of the wilderness. Did the patrolling militia alert them? Shi Wansui shook his head. Not yet. The patrol team is led by Dog 3, and they're quite smart. After they saw the bandits from afar, the main force watched from afar, and another person was sent back to the barracks to report. Yes, it did a good job. We can't be careless. With our current strength, we need to keep calm and control ourselves before we know the enemy's strength. How about this, General? Do two things. One is to figure out the size of the bandits as soon as possible, as well as their general strength. If necessary, the general has to go out personally. The other thing is to hurry up and choose soldiers to become militia as soon as possible. You can choose soldiers from the existing households and focus on military operations. I'll talk to the officers in charge about this, Ouyang Shua said cautiously. Shi Wansui, on the other hand, was very excited. He said loudly, "Don't worry, Master. I'm going to sneak into their camp tonight to investigate. I want to see what those fellows are capable of." Ouyang Shua wasn't too worried with Shi Wansui personally taking action. The appearance of the bandits this time might be a good thing for the territory. Firstly, they could take the opportunity to train the militia. Killing bandits was much faster than killing monsters to level up. Secondly, there was a high chance of obtaining building blueprints after eliminating them. The next day, Ouyang Shua called Shi Wansui to his office as soon as he went online. He hurriedly asked about last night's investigation. Shi Wansui was very capable. He had directly infiltrated the bandit camp last night and conducted a detailed investigation. Master, according to this general's investigation, there are about 100 people in the bandit camp. There were about 100 people in the entire bandit camp. Among them, there were more than 60 bandits who could fight, and the rest were women and children. The bandits with combat ability can be roughly divided into 3 types. The first type are ordinary bandits. They are poorly equipped and don't have mounts. Their strength is comparable to our militia. This type of people is the most numerous, and there are about 40 of them. The second type are the elite bandits. They are well equipped with bows and war horses. I reckon there are quite a number of them. I have about 20 war horses from their stables. The last type is the bandit leader. There are only 2 of them, a senior leader and a second leader. According to my judgment, the leader's strength is comparable to the newcomer Lin Yi. Ouyang Shua's expression was solemn. He said in a deep voice, "The strength of these bandits is beyond my expectations. Even ordinary bandits have the strength of militia. I'm afraid we'll suffer heavy losses if we fight them head-on." What's more troublesome is that these elite bandits are equipped with bows and arrows. This is a bigger threat to us. It seems that we can only use our wits this time and not force our way through. Shi Wansui, on the other hand, didn't think much of it. He said proudly, "This general doesn't agree with your words, Master. This will only boost the enemy's morale and diminish our own." In this general's eyes, these bandits are nothing more than chickens and dogs. As long as I sneak into their camp alone, I can kill more than half of them. Ouyang Shua smiled bitterly and replied, "I'm well aware of your bravery, General. But as the saying goes, ants can even bite an elephant to death. It's too risky for General to be alone. Wouldn't the losses outweigh the gains if the bandits ambushed you? General's talent lies in killing on the battlefield, not in fighting against the strong. General may be brave, but the militia is newly built, and their equipment is crude. They can't help General at all." Shi Wansui then gave a silly smile. "Then according to my lord, how should we deal with it?" Ouyang Shua smiled calmly and said confidently, "This matter needs to be discussed at length. The most important thing at this stage is to train the militia. We'll use silence to counter attacks and accumulate strength in silence. When the time is right, we'll crush them in one blow. Of course, we still need to keep an eye on them. Arrange for elite personnel to monitor the bandits' movements at all times. Also, the village's defense needs to be strengthened to prevent any accidents." Yes. With that, Shi Wansui left to arrange the village's defense. Chapter 20. Not long after Shi Wansui left, Chuang Yu walked into Ouyang Shua's office. Ouyang Shua smiled and invited her to sit down. He teased, "You don't come without a reason?" There was a reason for him to say that. Through this period of interaction, Ouyang Shua was stunned to find out that his sworn sister was a workaholic. If this was the modern society, she would definitely be a strong woman. "Big brother, even you're making fun of me. I'm working so hard for Big Brother's territory. Chuang Yu blushed and said coquettishly. Ouyang Shua quickly apologized and coaxed. All right, it's Big Brother's fault. Don't be angry, you heir. In order to avoid her embarrassment, he quickly found a way out and took the initiative to ask, is there any progress on the primary mining site? Although Yu was magnanimous, she was still a girl. Being teased by her closest and most trusted brother made her feel slightly embarrassed. She was supposed to report on her work, but now it was awkward to speak. Hearing Ouyang Shua take the initiative to talk about work, she heaved a sigh of relief. She collected her emotions and said calmly, yes. As early as 3 days ago, I found a blacksmith, Master Lee, and asked him to bring people to search for the mine. Yesterday, there was finally good news. They found an open iron ore mine at the foot of the mountain in the southwest of the territory. Not only is the mine large, but it's also very easy to harvest the ore. Some of the ore is directly exposed outside the soil, while the rest can be harvested by simply removing a layer of soil. Ouyang Shua nodded happily. This is really good news. Although the territory's demand for ore isn't very high now, when it's time to forge weapons, the demand will skyrocket. Now that we have this open mine, we won't have to worry about iron ore for a long time in the future. All right, did you find someone familiar with mining skills? Yes, I came here today to report to Big Brother. Among the refugees that spawned today, there's an intermediate miner called Yuan Xiaoping. I suggest that he be in charge of the primary mining site's operations. Ouyang Shua didn't hesitate, all right. Bring him here, and I'll meet him. If there's no problem, appoint him as the director of the primary mining site and put him under the management of the Material Reserve Department. Yu was very touched by Ouyang Shua's trust. Thank you, Big Brother, for your trust, hee. Ouyang Shua waved his hand and said with a smile, you're my little sister. You're capable and have good eyesight, so Big Brother naturally trusts you. However, don't work too hard. Yu responded in a low voice. The two of them became much closer. After Chuang Yu left, Ouyang Shua didn't plan to stay in the office. He thought it was time to take a look at the woodworking workshop. Ever since he gave the manual of making compass chariot to carpenter Lu Guangji, he wondered how his research was going and if there was any progress. This compass chariot was related to whether or not he would be able to obtain that exciting reward in the first battle map. The carpentry workshop was built on the central axis of the commercial street, next to the blacksmith shop. When Ouyang Shua walked into the woodworking workshop, this carpenter, who was said to be a descendant of Lu Ban, was circling around a wooden cart with 2 apprentices. Ouyang Shua stared blankly and couldn't help but feel astonished. Could it be that Lu Guangji had already thoroughly understood that technical manual and created a compass car? This was too amazing. One must know that this was a highly difficult technical task. Unlike modern compasses that used geomagnetic effects, the ancient compass chariot used the differential gear principle. The compass chariot used a gear transmission system, and according to the rotation of the wheels, the wooden figurine on the cart would point the direction. No matter where the cart turned, the wooden figurine's hand would always point to the south, so that even though the cart was moving back, its hand would always point to the south. A carpenter apprentice raised his head and saw Ouyang Shua, and quickly reminded the master who was still staring at the cart. Lu Guangji came back to his senses and hurriedly bowed. He said in fear, "This lowly one was distracted for a moment and neglected, sir. Please punish me, sir." Ouyang Shua smiled. Master Lu forgets himself in his work, which is worthy of everyone's admiration and learning. What's the crime? Lu Guangji blushed and said embarrassedly, "I've let Sir see a joke." Ouyang Shua didn't want to get entangled, so he directly pointed at the wooden cart. If I'm not wrong, that should be the compass chariot described in the manual of making compass chariot. I didn't expect that in just 3 or 4 days, Master Lu would actually make such progress. Hearing Ouyang Shua's words, the man's dark face instantly turned red, and he couldn't hide his shame. This lowly one is ashamed. I really don't deserve such praise from sir. This lowly one has indeed built the compass chariot according to the records in the book these past few days. Unfortunately, the cart can't point the way as recorded in the book. Only now did Ouyang Shua come to a sudden realization. So it was only a test product. Only then would it be more realistic. Master Liu, you don't have to be like this. As far as I know, this compass chariot is a very sophisticated instrument. Even with the technical manual as a reference, it can't be mastered in a short period of time. You don't have to be depressed, and you shouldn't feel ashamed. In any case, there's still plenty of time, so there's no need to rush. Master Liu can slowly study it, and maybe you can even take this opportunity to raise your level of carpentry. Liu Guangji's face slightly brightened, and he said gratefully, "Thank you, sir, for your trust. This lowly one will definitely seize the time to study it, and strive to make a real compass chariot as soon as possible to repay sir's kindness." If that's the case, I'm relieved. Then you guys go ahead. I won't disturb you anymore. Coming out of the carpentry workshop, Ouyang Shuo conveniently walked into the beginner blacksmith shop next to it. To be honest, he didn't attach much importance to Li Taiju, a beginner blacksmith. The reason was also very simple. Beginner blacksmiths couldn't forge weapons and armor. At most, they could forge arrowheads, and they weren't the more complicated triangular arrowheads. Because military supplies were contraband on the market, there were only 3 ways for a lord to obtain weapons and equipment. The first was the simplest, and that was when one changed professions in the military camp. The system would directly gift a set of basic weapons and equipment. For example, after farmers changed professions to militia, the system would automatically gift a spear and leather armor. The system's setting was to avoid the embarrassment of soldiers being naked, and it was considered a basic safeguard system. Of course, the disadvantages of this method were also very obvious. The weapons and equipment gifted by the system were not of high quality and could easily be damaged or destroyed. The second way was to smuggle and cooperate with the big chambers of commerce in the capital. As long as they could afford the price, those big chambers of commerce with deep backgrounds would dare to take the risk out of desperation. They would arrange private guards to escort the weapons and equipment all the way to your territory. Of course, this was not without cost. First, to contact these big chambers of commerce, they had to upgrade the beginner market to the advanced market, and then they could open the 4th platform of the market, the negotiation and cooperation platform. Second, the price of smuggled weapons and equipment was very abnormal, and unless one was a lord with strong financial resources, they simply couldn't afford it. Any random smuggling could make the territory close to bankruptcy. Those big chambers of commerce were not living lay foam, but natural vampires. They risked the destruction of their families to transport weapons and equipment to your territory, and they wouldn't be satisfied if they didn't earn a few times or even more than 10 times the profit. What was worse was that the chambers of commerce were only responsible for selling weapons and equipment. They were not responsible for the later maintenance. If they wanted after-sales service, there was no need to talk about it. The last way was to establish their own military industry. Once the territory had its own military industry, it naturally didn't need to be controlled by others. They could produce as much as they wanted. This method looked good, but in fact, it was the most difficult of the 3. Why? Because weapons and equipment were prohibited items. As long as they could be named, they needed the corresponding technical manual to be made. For example, the famous bright light armor of the Northern and Southern dynasties in history needed the bright light armor manufacturing technical manual to be made. Under normal circumstances, these technical manuals couldn't be bought in the beginner market. There was only one place to buy them. That was the 3rd platform after upgrading to the intermediate market, the limited time auction platform. The system would hold limited-time auctions on this platform from time to time. At that time, some rarely seen items would appear, and more than half of the technical manuals for weapons and equipment came from this auction. Ouyang Shuo clearly remembered that in his previous life, the first auction was held 3 months after the server opened. It was also the day when the credit and game currency trading platform was officially opened. Back to the front, in Ouyang Shuo's plan, to start the weapons workshop, he needed at least an advanced blacksmith to preside over it. Therefore, he didn't have any expectations for a beginner blacksmith like Li Taiju. Unexpectedly, as soon as he walked into the blacksmith shop, Li Taiju gave him a pleasant surprise. The burly blacksmith saw Ouyang Shuo and said happily, "Ha, what a coincidence! I was just about to look for you, but I didn't expect you to come unexpectedly. Oh, I wonder what Masterly wants to report to me? Seeing the usually calm and capable blacksmith reveal such an excited expression, Ouyang Shuo found it strange. I have good news to report to you, sir. Yesterday afternoon, when I was forging farming tools for the Department of Agriculture, I naturally broke through the bottleneck and was officially promoted to an intermediate blacksmith. Hearing this, Ouyang Shuo immediately thought of the Gold Grade Village Creation Order's special property. Production type resident skill proficiency increased by 20%. Territory type people's success rate of breaking through the bottleneck increased by 10%. He didn't expect it to take effect so quickly. It was really powerful. Then I really have to congratulate Masterly. I want to ask, when you broke through, did you feel anything special? Feeling? I didn't feel anything. Everything seemed to happen naturally. Ever since I came to Shanghai Village, I feel that my blacksmithing skills have become more and more proficient. The problems that had been puzzling me before suddenly became simple after coming here. It was as if I had the help of God. Blacksmith Li was also very surprised by his own breakthrough. Good. No matter what, this is good. Next, Master Li can try forging some arrowheads and spears. Soon, the territory will be useful. Li Taiju happily agreed. To a blacksmith, being able to forge weapons was a great honor. After a simple explanation, Ouyang Shuo left the blacksmith shop. Chapter 21. On the 20th of January in the first year of Gaia, the militia of 50 people had assembled in a military drill ground. Standing on a temporary platform, Ouyang Shuo began to mobilize the militia. Soldiers, I, the Lord of the Shanghai Village, am speaking to you now. 5 days ago, a bandit camp appeared in our territory's sphere of influence. They are numerous and well-equipped. We have few soldiers, and our weapons are not good enough. If you are afraid, you can come out now. There's no need to go. Soldiers, you must remember this. From the moment you stepped into the barracks, you are no longer farmers digging for food in the fields. You have made a clean break with your past life of being buried in a yellow soil with your backs to the sky. Who are you? You're soldiers carefully selected by the territory. A soldier's mission is to protect the country. Now, the villagers are looking at you, at their own soldiers. Whether you're a worm or a dragon depends on this battle. Are you afraid? No. All the militia responded loudly. None of them was a coward. Are you confident? Yes. Very good, let's go. Under Sure Wansue's lead, the militia left the military camp in an orderly manner. In 4 days, the militia was not only full, but also reached the maximum level of 10. Ouyang Shuo had been leveling up with him these days, and he had also reached level 14. Just this morning, the soldiers in charge of monitoring the bandit camp sent news. Early that morning, the second-in-command of the bandit camp led 12 elite bandits and 20 ordinary bandits out to plunder. In an instant, nearly half of the bandit camp's forces had left. Faced with such a good opportunity, Ouyang Shuo naturally would not let it go. He immediately gathered the militia and went straight to the bandit camp's base camp. Of course, even with so many people going out, the strength of the bandit camp was not inferior to that of the militia. In order to reduce unnecessary casualties, Ouyang Shuo still adopted some tactics. He planned to let Buttface lead a group of militia and disguise them as refugees. They would deliberately pass the bandit camp. The rest of the people would lie in ambush behind a small hill 3 miles away from the bandit camp. Half an hour later, the militia arrived at the back of the hill and began to rest. Ouyang Shuo called Buttface over and patted his shoulder, saying, "Buttface, be alert later. Don't let their cavalry catch up with you. Remember, don't get too close to the camp. They have a sentry tower in their camp. Anyone who appears within a kilometer of them will be detected by them." Buttface was the smartest one among this group of militias, and he ran fast. At this moment, not only was he not afraid, he was very excited. "Don't worry, my lord. I might not be good at other things, but I'm definitely good at running." Ouyang Shuo kicked him and said with a smile, "Stinking brat, look at what you're capable of. Hurry up and scram." Buttface chuckled and left with the other 9 people, who had already disguised themselves. They had to make a big detour first, then pretend to be refugees trudging in the opposite direction. Otherwise, he would easily be exposed. These bandits were able to survive in the wilderness, so they weren't easy to deal with. All of them were like intelligent people. A commander who treated the enemy as a fool was the real fool. 20 minutes later, Buttface and his companions were less than 1,000 feet away from the rogue bandit camp, and they appeared in the sight of the sentries of the rogue bandit camp. The sentinel looked at the group of refugees and didn't think much of it. He quickly went to report that a group of 10 fat sheep had walked right into the trap, and they were not far away from the camp. The leader of the rogue bandit camp was busy communicating with the girl he kidnapped last time. When he heard that there were only 10 people, he said impatiently, "Mother Astersker, why are you looking for me for such a trivial matter? Do you want to die? Tell Zhao Lu to take a few people to deal with it." Zhao Lu was an elite bandit, and after receiving the order, he was very excited. He directly picked the other 4 bandits, got on their horses, and rushed out of the camp. Buttface was also smart, and when he was just 1,000 feet away from the rogue bandit camp, he stopped. He pretended to recognize the appearance of the rogue bandit camp, and with a face full of panic, he turned around and ran with the rest of the people. Zhao Lu laughed when he saw the flustered appearance of the refugees in front of him. Not only did he not chase after them, but he also slowed down, unhurriedly trailing behind Buttface and his companions. He was going to play a game of cat and mouse and tease this group of refugees. Not long after, this group of people appeared in front of Ouyang Shua's group, one after the other. Seeing the mocking expression on Zhao Lu's face, Ouyang Shua snorted in his heart. "Reckless bastards, I will make you pay for your arrogance in blood later." When Zhao Lu was only 100 meters away from the small hill, the militia that was lying in ambush suddenly rushed out from behind the hill. Under the same command, everyone gathered the spears in their hands and threw them at the bandits. Shi Wansui stood at the side, knocked an arrow on his bow, and with a whoosh, shot the leader Zhao Lu off his horse. 40 spears, in a tight formation, shot the bandits like a porcupine before they could even react. Victory naturally boosted the morale of the bandits. Ouyang Shua arranged for Lin Yi to bring some people to collect the spoils of war, and at the same time, completely eliminate the bandits who were still breathing. Because everyone's spears were aimed at the bandits on the horses, the 5 war horses, other than one that was injured, the rest were unharmed. Other than the war horses, the most useful spoils of war were the 5 bows. Ouyang Shua looked at the attributes of these spoils of war. Name: normal war horse, black iron. Weight: 50 kg. Speed: 30 km/day consumption. 3 units of rations/day rating. This is a war horse that can barely be used on the battlefield. Name: normal single wooden bow, black iron. Length: 12 meters. Range: 150 meters. Rating: using ash wood as the raw material, bending it into shape, tying it to a string made of deer tendons, a single wooden bow is made. So, don't put too much hope on its power. Ouyang Shua arranged for 2 militias to bring the 5 war horses back to the village. 5 bows, just enough for the 5 squad leaders, 1 each. Unfortunately, other than Lin Yi and Zhang Dinyo, the 2 squad leaders who knew basic archery, it was the first time for the others to touch a bow. After quickly cleaning up the battlefield, the team didn't stop and went straight to the bandits' main camp. Ouyang Shua wanted to take the initiative to attack before the bandits could react. This time, the balance of strength had tilted. Of the 20 elite bandits, 12 had gone out and 5 had died in battle. There were only 3 elite bandits left in the camp, and they were nothing to worry about. Before they left, Ouyang Shua told Shi Wansui that Lin Yi would be the one to take care of the leader later. His main responsibility was to use the birch bough's range advantage to take out the elite bandits on the other side. Then, he would protect the militias to avoid heavy casualties. When they were 300 meters away from the bandits' camp, Shi Wansui knocked an arrow and killed 2 sentries on his horse. Using this opportunity, Ouyang Shua ordered the troops to speed up and charge into the bandits' camp. When they entered the camp, the bandits hadn't finished gathering yet, and the camp was in chaos. Sure Wansway charged at the front, like a killing machine in human form, unstoppable. The militia's morale was at its peak after Sure Wansway's provocation. The soldiers were no longer afraid, and they followed Sure Wansway and fought with the normal bandits. On the other hand, the bandits' morale plummeted after the sudden attack and Sure Wansway's power. At this time, the bandits' leader finally put on his equipment and rushed out of the room with a big axe. He didn't need Ouyang Shua's orders, and he rushed up and fought with the leader. The two were equal in strength, but one used an axe and the other used a spear. As the saying went, an inch longer was an inch stronger. The two fought, and it was obvious who was stronger. In less than 20 rounds, he found an opening in the leader's defense, and he stabbed his spear into the leader's chest like lightning, ending his life. The bandits saw that their leader was stabbed to death, and they didn't want to fight anymore. They scattered in all directions. Unfortunately, the camp wasn't big to begin with, and they were killed by the 5 squad leaders not long after. As for the 3 elite bandits, they were shot to death by the vigilant Sure Wansway. The battle started quickly and ended just as quickly. After the battle, the militia had 2 heavily injured people and 12 lightly injured people. Fortunately, no one died. The 2 heavily injured members, even if they were healed, wouldn't be able to fight again. Ouyang Shua could only force them to retire. As for the 12 people with minor injuries, they should be fine after applying medicine and bandaging their wounds for a few days. After annihilating the rogue bandit camp, Ouyang Shua's level skyrocketed to level 18. He took the opportunity to check his stats. Name, don't say you have no clothes. Title, famous scholar, raises historical characters' affection by 10. Territory, Shanghai Village. Achievement, 1, 300/1, 600. Title, 3rd rank Viscount. Profession, General, part-time. Level 18, 6521/72386. Reputation, famous far and near, 120 out of 100. Root, 18. Comprehension, 20. Fortune, 5. Charm, 8. Commander, 26. Strength, 8. Intelligence, 8. Politics, 26. Talent. Lock skills, none skills. Intermediate gathering, beginner shipbuilding, beginner diplomacy, beginner detection, beginner weapon mastery, basic horsemanship, basic spear mastery, basic archery mount, inferior warhorse, bronze grade equipment, inferior iron spear, bronze grade, ring of courage, iron grade. While Ouyang Shua was checking his stats, Sure Wansway had already brought his men to clean up the battlefield. In the game, NPCs couldn't be resurrected after they died, so their corpses wouldn't stay for long. Usually, after an NPC died, their corpses would stay for an hour. During this time, if someone helped to collect their corpses, they could bring them to the cemetery for burial. Otherwise, they would all turn into white light and disappear, just like the corpses of the bandits. This also reflected the humane design of the game. Otherwise, in the later stages of the game, the thousands of corpses in a single battle would be horrifying to look at. This time, after wiping out the bandits, they had seized countless resources, so it was hard to count them all. In addition, Ouyang Shua was also preparing to bring the women and children back to the territory. After a rough count, there were 32 women and 3 children, for a total of 35 people. These women and children were basically left behind to serve the bandits after they looted the village. Not only could these people quickly replenish the population of the territory, but they could also improve the population structure of the territory to a certain extent. Among the refugees that the system spawned in the early stages of the game, more than 80% were adult males. According to the system's logic, since they were refugees, naturally, stronger adult males would have a higher chance of surviving. As for the old, weak, women, and children, most of them couldn't survive in the wilderness. As for whether these women would find someone else to marry and have children after returning to the territory, Ouyang Shua wasn't going to interfere. Ouyang Shua didn't intend to interfere. Everything was decided by the villagers. As the Lord, all he could do was ensure that they wouldn't be discriminated against in the territory, and at the same time, ensure their personal safety and freedom. Chapter 22. At 11 in the morning, the entire battlefield was cleaned up. All the weapons and equipment dropped by the bandits were collected. The horses in the stables, the supplies in the warehouses, and even the valuables in the rooms were all taken. One had to know that Ouyang Shaw only had the 10 silver coins he saved because he didn't need to change his class. Of course, he had to use his full strength when he encountered a good opportunity like this. Even if he had to dig 3 feet into the ground, he wouldn't let go of even a single copper coin. Ouyang Shuo called Lin, Yi, and Zhang Daniu over, ordering them to take their men and escort the wounded, women, and children back to the village. The wounded were given to Dr. Song, and the women and children to Gu Xiuan. As for the supplies, they were given to Cui Yingyu, the head of the reserve division, to do a detailed count. He would deal with them after he returned. At the same time, he ordered them to bring their troops back to the bandits' camp after escorting the supplies back to the village. Ouyang Shuo didn't forget that there was still a group of bandits who hadn't returned yet. How could he be at ease if he didn't take them all out? At 1 in the afternoon, Lin, Yi, and Zhang Daniu returned with their troops, along with the 2 soldiers who escorted the horses. Ouyang Shuo did some calculations. Other than himself and Shi Wansui, there were 36 people in the militia who could still fight. It was still a bit difficult to deal with that group of bandits who went out. There were 12 elites in that group of bandits. They might have to play some tricks again. Ahem, no, it was a slip of the tongue. They were going to use some tricks and outsmart them. Ouyang Shuo ordered the militia to restore the bandits' camp to its original state while they still had time. He was prepared to wait for the bandits to come, and then catch them like a turtle in a jar. They waited all the way until 6 in the evening. The sky was getting dark. The group of people in the houses around the square in front of the bandits' camp were getting impatient from waiting. The bandits finally came back. They weren't the only ones. They were escorting more than 10 women. From the looks of it, they had most likely ransacked another village on this trip. The bandits walked to the front of the camp. They didn't see any sentries, and the camp was quiet. They finally felt that something was wrong, but they naturally weren't willing to leave just like that. First, he had to figure out what had happened in the camp. Secondly, their belongings, including their own stash of money, were all hidden in the camp. As the saying goes, those who are skilled are bold. Relying on their previous fearlessness in the wilderness, these bandits who often licked blood from their blades still formed an offensive formation and slowly walked into the camp. After coming in, the second leader was quite alert. He didn't let everyone disperse easily. Unfortunately, the campsite had already been tampered with by Ouyang Shuo and the others, so nothing unusual could be seen on the surface. The second leader had no choice but to order his men to get off their horses, spread out, and search around to see if they could find any clues. Because of this decision, the nightmares of these bandits began. Without the advantage of horses and bows, they were in the light and in the dark. The militia used fire as a combat unit, separating and surrounding the bandits, forming a small area to fight against a few. The second leader was naturally left to Lin Yi, and Shi Wansui, the god of death, was once again the source of nightmares for the bandits. Compared to the battle in the morning, there was no suspense in this battle. In less than half an hour, a total of 33 roving bandits were all killed. After the bloody and fiery experience in the morning, the militia had adapted to the atmosphere of the battlefield, and the afternoon battle became more experienced. After the battle, only 4 people suffered minor injuries. None of them were seriously injured, and none of them died. Ouyang Shuo took this opportunity to level up to level 20. Because it was already late, Ouyang Shuo ordered everyone to quickly clean up the battlefield. He himself went to the bandit camp's meeting hall, or perhaps it was called the congregation hall. In the loyalty gathering hall, a stone tablet had already risen from the ground. Ouyang Shuo stepped forward and pressed his hand on the stone tablet. A series of system notifications rang out. System notice: congratulations to player Don't Say Nothing for eliminating a basic rogue bandit camp. Please choose how you would like to deal with the rogue bandit camp. Do you want to take possession of it, transfer it, or destroy it? Destroy. It was impossible to transfer it, and there was no value in possessing it. It was inconsistent with the territory's plans, so he simply chose to destroy it. System notice. Player Don't Say Nothing has chosen to destroy a basic rogue bandit camp. Randomly obtain 20 building blueprints of the camp and 20 construction materials for all the buildings in the camp. System notice. Congratulations to player Don't Say Nothing for obtaining stable building blueprints and dojo building blueprints. Obtain 200 wood units and 80 stone units. System notice. Congratulations to player Don't Say Nothing for successfully destroying a basic rogue bandit camp. Obtained 100 achievement points and 200 reputation points. With a flash of white light, the entire campsite disappeared. At the same time, 2 more building blueprints appeared in Ouyang Shua's storage bag. A pile of wood and stone appeared on the ground of the Loyalty Gathering Hall. This time, it was much easier to clean up the battlefield. There were only the weapons and equipment dropped by the bandits and the 12 warhorses. Oh, and there were also 11 women. With this calculation, a basic rogue bandit camp contributed a total of 46 people to Ouyang Shua, which was equivalent to the number of refugees spawning in the territory for 3 days. As for the pile of wood and stone, Ouyang Shua did not have a special spatial equipment that could store resources. He could only wait until tomorrow and let the reserve department arrange for people to transport them away. It was already 8 at night when the group of people escorted the spoils of war back to the village. The villagers had already gathered at the entrance of the village, waiting for the heroes who had returned. I heard that the Lord directly annihilated a rogue bandit camp this time. Amazing. Yeah, I still remember how the bandits looted our village. Such savage fellows. Us lords killing them is like chopping vegetables and carrots. Haha. The guys in the militia are not bad, either. They didn't bring shame to our Shanghai village. They insisted on it. Yeah. I heard that the captain was stabbed to death by General Lin Yi with 1 shot. Your news is outdated. I just heard that even the second captain was stabbed to death by General Lin Yi. Since it was already late, Ouyang Shua told everyone to leave early. After the militia handed over the supplies to the reserve department, they were also asked to return to the camp to rest. The 11 women were naturally given to Gu Xiuan. He didn't waste too much time and went offline after giving some simple instructions to Cui Yingyu and Gu Xiuan. On the second day, it was finally time to share the spoils of war. Ouyang Shua called Cui Yingyu and Gu Xiuan to the mayor's office and had them report the spoils of war. Cui Yingyu was obviously very happy. She smiled and said, "Brother, I have to say this is really a big harvest." Last night, the supplies reserve department did not complete the statistics until late into the night. Pausing for a moment, he purposely whetted Ouyang Shua's appetite before continuing. According to the reserve department statistics, yesterday's 2 batches of spoils included a total of 32 gold coins, 76 silver coins, 25 copper coins, and 3,540 units of rations. There were 3 architectural blueprints, 1 for the medical center, the other for the tailor shop, and the other for the weapons workshop. Also, a special item, a beginner seal. Most of the spoils are weapons and equipment. 22 warhorses, 2 of which are high-quality warhorses and 20 of which are normal warhorses. 30 bows, 2 of which are beginners' composite bows and 28 of which are normal wooden bows. Other than that, there are 10,000 arrows. 50 armors, 1 of which is normal profound armor, 2 of which are normal chainmail armors, 20 of which are normal leather armors, and 27 of which are inferior leather armors. 30 iron swords, 1 of which is fine, 10 of which are normal, and 19 of which are inferior. 30 spears, 1 of which is fine, 10 of which are normal, and 19 of which are inferior. In terms of weapons and equipment, there's also a high-quality battle axe and a high-quality iron spear. Although he was already mentally prepared, Ouyang Shua still felt like he had hit the jackpot when he heard Yu's report. According to the game settings, equipment with the prefix of inferior was the lowest bronze grade. Equipment with the normal prefix was black iron grade, and equipment with the fine prefix was silver grade, and equipment with the prefix of fine was gold grade. In the future, gold grade, would be the mainstream equipment for a long time. There were only two ranks between dark gold and purple gold, the highest tier of divine equipment. Right now, he couldn't wait to check the attributes of those equipment. Oh right, there was also that seal. He had a premonition that the commander's seal was the biggest game this time. Before he could regain his composure, Gu Xiaowen continued his report. Sir, I also have good news to report. What good news? Xiaowen, don't tell me that there are special talents among the women yesterday. Ouyang Shua said jokingly. Gu Xiaowen smiled bitterly and said, Sir's guess is quite accurate. Yes, there were two special talents among the two groups yesterday. In the morning group, there was a high-level chef called Gu Sanyang. She was originally the head chef of the roving bandits camp. In the evening group, there was an even more amazing one. She was only 18 years old, and she was a high-level tailor called Mu Qingxi. Another bombshell. Ouyang Shua was so happy that he almost fainted. Heavens, an 18-year-old high-level tailor? What kind of monstrous talent was that? With this kind of talent and the special characteristics of the Shanghai village, it was only a matter of time before she became a master. It was even possible for him to reach the Grandmaster level, which was one level higher. Xiaowen, you must make arrangements for them. How about this? Let them live in the Lord's mansion. There's still an empty room in the West Wing. Let them live in that room. I will personally pay them a visit after I'm done with this batch of supplies. Ouyang Xiaowen naturally had to treat such high-level talents with great courtesy. All right. Gu Xiaowen nodded. I trust you, Xiaowen. He turned to look at Shui Yingyu and said with a smile, Yingyu, hurry up and take Big Brother to see the spoils of war. I can't wait. The rations had already been stored in the granary. Ouyang Shua had no interest in checking them. Money, blueprints, and seal were temporarily placed in Shui Yingyu's room. Ouyang Shua put them into a storage pouch. The weapons and equipment were piled in the courtyard of the courtyard. The war horses were tied in the square in front of the courtyard. Among the weapons and equipment, Ouyang Shua only took a beginner composite bow, an exquisite iron sword, and a high-quality fine iron spear. He planned to give the rest of the weapons and equipment to the militia according to their merits. It just so happened that second baby was squatting in the courtyard. He was curiously looking at the weapons and equipment, touching them here and there. Ouyang Shua knocked his head and said with a smile, Stinking brat, stop looking. Go to the barracks and tell General Shi that I asked him to arrange for people to transport the weapons and equipment. Second baby laughed and trotted out of the door, heading straight for the barracks. Chapter 23. Taking advantage of this time, Ouyang Shua first checked the attributes of the three pieces of equipment he had taken. Name, beginner composite bow, black iron. Length, 14 meters. Range, 200 meters. Evaluation. The bow body is made of tough black birch wood and larch wood. Between the two layers of wood are padded with the tendons of deer or cow. Then, fine-scaled fish skin is used to make glue and stick them together firmly. After the bow body was made, it was tied with deerskin thread. Name, fine iron sword, silver. Hardness, 15. Toughness, 20. Evaluation. An iron sword made of repeatedly folded and forged steel. The blade is sharp and tough. Name, high-quality fine iron spear, gold. Hardness, 30. Toughness, 45. Evaluation. The spear shaft is made of high-quality iron ridge wood. The spearhead is forged repeatedly with fine iron. The craftsmanship is exquisite. Ouyang Shua nodded with satisfaction. This time, he had really changed the shotgun into a cannon. He attached the iron sword to his waist and put the composite bow and fine iron spear into the room. He was not a pure general. Usually, he would not have the patience to hold these weapons in his hands. In the square in front of the Lord's mansion, 22 war horses were tied in a row. The most eye-catching were the two horses on the far left, one black and one white. They were very handsome. Ouyang Shua took a fancy to the black war horse at first glance. It had a beautiful black mane and a strong body. It was unusually handsome. Name, high-quality war horse, gold. Weight, 60 kg. Speed, 40 km/day. Consumption, 3 units of rations/day. Evaluation. This is a high-quality war horse native to the northern grasslands. It is enough to take you to the battlefield." Ouyang Shua said in admiration, "What a good horse. From now on, you will be called Black Whirlwind." Surprisingly, the horse was quite human-like. It seemed to understand his words and nodded. This made Ouyang Shua love it even more. He took Black Whirlwind to the yard. It just so happened that he had gotten the building blueprint of the stable yesterday. He was going to build a small stable for Black Whirlwind next to the yard. In less than 10 minutes, second brother came back with Shi Wansui and the others. There were 30 of them. As soon as they entered the courtyard, Shi Wansui's loud voice roared, "Ha ha! My lord, I heard that you're going to give all the weapons and equipment you've seized to your brothers?" Exactly. The militia made the greatest contribution in annihilating the roving bandits this time, and they ought to be rewarded. As he spoke, he pointed at the equipment piled up in the courtyard. "Tell the brothers to move the equipment to the barracks. Also, bring the 21 war horses in the square at the entrance. Let's hold a meeting in the barracks to evaluate our contributions and reward them." "Haha, that's a good idea." Shi Wansui cheered and began to instruct the militia to move the weapons and equipment. Another dozen people were sent out to fetch the horses. The group returned to the barracks. Ouyang Shua started giving out rewards after everyone had gathered. Lin Yi stepped forward. "Here, the first one to be called." This young general seemed very excited. During the annihilation of the roving bandits, third squad leader Lin Yi killed the leader and the second leader of the roving bandits. This is a great contribution. Ouyang Shua paused. A high-quality war horse, a beginner's compound bow, and a normal mystical armor will be rewarded. "Thank you, my lord." When Ouyang Shua handed over the war horse, bow, and mystical armor to Lin Yi, everyone in the militia looked at him enviously. Lin Yi already had a fine steel spear and a ring blade, and with a war horse, bow, and mystical armor, he basically had all the equipment for a general. Dog Sanzi stepped forward. "Here." During the annihilation of the roving bandits, second squad leader Sanzi lured the enemy and fought well. "This is a great contribution. I hereby bestow upon you an ordinary war horse, an ordinary wooden bow, an ordinary chainmail armor, and an exquisite spear as your rewards." "Thank you, my lord." Zhang Dinyo stepped forward. "Here." During the annihilation of the roving bandits, first squad leader Zhang Dinyo fought bravely. "This is a great contribution. I hereby bestow upon you an ordinary war horse, an ordinary wooden bow, an ordinary chainmail armor, and an excellent battle axe as your rewards." In comparison, Zhang Dinyo's reward was slightly better than Dog Sanzi's. It couldn't be helped. Dog Sanzi was an agile warrior, and a long spear was more suitable for him. Zhang Dinyo was a strength-type warrior, and a tomahawk was more suitable for him. Zhao Sihu, Li Mingliang, stepped forward. "Here." During the annihilation of the roving bandits, Zhao Sihu and Li Mingliang fought bravely and killed the enemy. You are officially promoted to the 4th and 5th squad leaders. A normal equipment set will be rewarded. "Thank you, my lord." Zhao Sihu and Li Mingliang answered at the same time. These two were from the second batch of militia members. After this battle, he caught up from behind and filled the vacant positions of squad leaders of the 4th and 5th Flames. Shi Wansui had been interested in them for a long time and had recommended them to Ouyang Shua as squad leaders. In order to take care of the feelings of the veterans, Ouyang Shua had decided to temporarily put aside their appointment and observe their performance in the upcoming battle. As expected, the two of them didn't disappoint him. They had performed outstandingly in the annihilation of the roving bandits. Only then did Ouyang Shua conveniently promote them to squad leader positions. After rewarding the main meritorious soldiers, he didn't continue to reward the ordinary soldiers. He planned to let Shi Wansui distribute the rewards for these soldiers to maintain Shi Wansui's prestige in the army. As for the rewards, these weapons and equipment are nothing to our great General Shi. Ouyang Shua cleared his throat and said loudly, "Next, General Shi will distribute the rewards for the other meritorious soldiers. Everyone please applaud." The soldiers immediately applauded and cheered. Shi Wansui didn't care at all. He climbed onto the platform and began to distribute the rewards according to the soldier's performance. Taking advantage of this, Ouyang Shuo took out the beginner commander seal from his storage bag and checked its attributes. Crossbow cavalry commander seal. Beginner can turn 100 max level militia into grade 1 crossbow cavalry. It was truly powerful. Ouyang Shuo was clearer than anyone else about the value of this commander seal. Firstly, they didn't need to level up to intermediate level and could directly become grade 1 soldiers. This saved them a lot of money. It must be known that the average cost for a militia to become a grade 1 soldier was 10 times that of the previous militia, which was 1 gold coin. Secondly, when a militia became a grade 1 soldier, they only had 3 choices: infantry, cavalry, and marine. In other words, there was only one major classification for a grade 1 soldier to choose from. After that, the type of soldier they became depended on what kind of equipment they were given, as well as what kind of skills they were taught. For example, for infantry, if they were commanded by a general who was proficient in saber techniques, they could be given a saber and a shield and slowly trained to become a saber and shield soldier. Using a commander seal, they could directly change to a different type of soldier. Just like the commander seal in Ouyang Shuo's hand, they could directly change to a crossbow cavalry. After Shi Wansui finished distributing the rewards, Ouyang Shuo once again walked up to the platform and looked around at the soldiers. In the battle of annihilating the bandit camp, everyone didn't disappoint me, and you didn't disappoint the villagers of Shanghai Village. After distributing the rewards, this page is considered to have completely turned over. I don't want anyone to be immersed in the glory of the past. We are warriors, and fighting is our duty. Today, we annihilated a bandit camp. Tomorrow, there will be even more powerful enemies waiting for us. As a warrior, the only thing you need to do is to be diligent, and even more diligent in your daily training. That is to be fearless in every battle and bravely kill the enemy. Now, there is a new opportunity in front of you. Ouyang Shuo waved the commander seal in his hand. This is a crossbow cavalry commander seal, and also the most precious spoils of war in this battle. Next, I will change everyone's profession to crossbow cavalry. I hope that everyone can make good use of this rare time and train hard. Soon, there will be an even greater challenge waiting for us. Are you confident? Yes. The soldier's blood was boiling with excitement after hearing Ouyang Shuo's words. Very good. Now, everyone, line up in front of the class change chamber and begin the class change. Ouyang Shuo walked down the platform and arrived at the door of the class change chamber. He stuck the commander's seal in his hand on the door, and a series of system notifications rang out. System notice: crossbow cavalry commander seal, basic, detected. Do you want to use it? Yes. A white light flashed, and the commander seal merged into the door, disappearing. System notice: congratulations to player, not have closed for successfully using a crossbow cavalryman's commander's tally, basic. The class change room has automatically added the option to become a Tier 1 crossbow cavalryman. The class change room will continue until all 100 class change slots are used up. System notice: do you want to start the class change chamber immediately? Begin. System notice: please select the number of people you want to class change. 47 people. Ouyang Shuo had already arranged for the 2 heavily injured militiamen to retire, so there were only 47 people who could class change. He planned to make up for it once the village became a level 3 village. System notification: class change participants complete. Class change secret room is now in operation. Remaining level 1 crossbow cavalry, 53. Other than Lin E, the rest of the militia entered the room one by one, including the squad leaders. The first to come out was a soldier from First Fire, and Ouyang Shuo took the opportunity to check his stats. Name: Iron Bull. Identity: First Fire soldier of crossbow cavalry profession. Crossbow cavalry level: Level 1 battle strength. 20th attack and defense. Extra 5 points for crossbow cavalry. Consumption: 5 units of rations/day. Includes rations for mounts. Skills: basic archery and horsemanship. Equipment: normal warhorse, beginner composite bow, normal divine crossbow, normal iron sword. Normal javelin, normal iron armor, normal wooden shield rating. A type of cavalry that uses riding animals as a means of movement and is equipped with a crossbow as a weapon. They are well equipped, good at escaping, ambushing, and archery. Normally speaking, a max-level militia would have 11 battle strength. After becoming a level 1 soldier, it would go up to 15. Crossbow cavalry, on the other hand, gave an additional 5 battle strength. A large part of this additional increase in combat power was reflected in their entire set of iron-grade equipment. With the strength of a normal level 1 crossbow cavalry, they could easily beat up the leader of Bloodlust Mercenaries' Bloody Romance, who is the highest level player in the game. Even the equipment they got from Lin, he couldn't compare to the basic equipment the system gave the crossbow cavalry. From this, one could see just how valuable a commander seal was. Chapter 24. After completing the class change, Ouyang Shuo left the camp. He didn't plan on interfering with the daily training of the archers, the patrolling of the territory, and the guarding of the North Fall salt pans. There was a famous general like Shi Wansui in the camp, a fierce young general like Lin Yi, and the squad leaders who were maturing day by day. He was at ease. What he needed to do was to delegate enough power to the squad leaders so that they could be trained and grow faster. Of course, he wouldn't let go of the core power of appointing and firing people. This was the core of his influence over the troops. If he really let it go, it would be hard to say whether the army would still recognize him as a lord in the future. This was the charm of the game. NPCs weren't rigid data. They had their own emotions. The higher the level of the NPC, the more intelligent they were. Take Shi Wansui, for example. As an Emperor-level character, his experience and knowledge in this virtual world even surpassed Ouyang Shuo, who was a player. Although he was restricted by the system rules and history, Shi Wansui wouldn't go against Ouyang Shuo's orders. But if Ouyang Shuo's actions were too ridiculous and he couldn't trust him, then he might not put in the effort to do things. Their loyalty couldn't be summed up by the loyalty in the status pane. Although they wouldn't betray him, they would fight for power and profit. On the other hand, it was because of this high degree of realism. The Lord could use this platform to train himself. After all, the cost of making mistakes in the game was much lower than in reality. Ouyang Shuo walked out of the camp and started thinking about what he should do next. Everything in the territory was operating in an orderly manner, and he was moving towards a level 3 village. The problem of funds that had troubled him in the past had been completely resolved in this operation to annihilate the rogue bandits. At the thought of this, he recalled the few architectural blueprints in his storage pouch. There were a total of 5 blueprints in his storage pouch. They were the stable building blueprints, dojo building blueprints, medical building blueprints, tailor building blueprints, and weapon building blueprints. Among them, the stable and weapon building blueprints were the basic buildings of a level 3 village. Ouyang Shuo looked at the construction conditions of the 2 buildings and regretfully realized that he could only build the stable. Stable, a place to raise horses, also known as a stable. Construction requirement: stable blueprint, 200 units of wood, 50 units of stone. Construction time, 1 day. Weapon workshop, a comprehensive weapon and equipment workshop that can forge normal weapons and armor. Construction requirements: advanced blacksmith, weapon workshop construction blueprint, 400 wood units, 200 stone units. Construction time, 2 days. The weapons workshop required high-level blacksmiths, which the Shanghai village currently did not have. The only blacksmith, Li Taizhu, had only recently been promoted to an intermediate blacksmith. It would be difficult for him to become an advanced blacksmith again in a short period of time. Fortunately, there was still time. Ouyang Shuo looked forward to the day when he could directly obtain an advanced blacksmith. Among the basic buildings of the level 2 village, he still lacked the blueprints for the ancestral hall and the private school. Now that he had money, Ouyang Shuo immediately rushed to the basic market and spent 10 gold to buy the 2 blueprints. In this way, all the basic buildings of the second-level village could be built, except for the private school, which was still missing an elementary scholar. In the past 5 days, the construction division had already completed the construction of the Arrow Towers, primary mines, and 15 residential courtyards. He returned to the courtyard house and walked into the administrative office. It just so happened that the deputy director of the construction division, Zhao Duong, was in the office. Ouyang Shuo gave him all the blueprints and ordered him to build the 5 buildings as soon as possible. In addition, he didn't forget to specifically tell Zhao Duong to build a stable for Black Whirlwind next to the courtyard house. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shuo went to visit the 2 militiamen who were seriously injured yesterday. After Dr. Song's treatment, the 2 people were out of danger. One of them was a young man, only 20 years old, called Song Yi. During the battle, 2 fingers on his left hand were cut off by the bandits, leaving him with a lifelong disability. When Ouyang Shuo went to see him, the little guy couldn't hold back and cried like a child. The other one was a 30-year-old middle-aged man called Li Tai. His right eye was shot by a bandit's bow and was completely blind. He was a real man. When Ouyang Shuo looked at him, his mood had already calmed down. His emotions had calmed down, and he could still talk and laugh with him. He said half seriously and half jokingly, "Darren, even if I, Li Tai, only have one eye, I can still kill the enemy." Ouyang Shuo's heart turned sour. I believe you. However, you won't be going to the front lines. Soon, when the territory rises to the level of a township, a special security team will be established. At that time, I will arrange for you and Song Yi to join the security team. Right now, your mission is to properly recuperate. After your injuries are healed, don't neglect your martial arts skills. I don't want to recruit you into the security team only to fail to catch a petty thief. Li Tai immediately said in a loud voice, "Don't worry, Darren. When the time comes, I definitely won't lose face for you, nor will I lose face for the militia. I believe you. Properly recuperate. I won't disturb your rest. Remember my words. Don't feel any psychological burden. I will remember your contributions in my heart. When the time is right, I will give you enough compensation. Many thanks for your care, Darren." After Ouyang Shuo's consolation and his promise, the 2 people's hearts were as if they had taken a tranquilizer and completely calmed down. When they returned to the Lord's mansion, they saw 2 women chatting in the corridor of the courtyard's west wing. "Big Sister Gu, we've been here for a day. Darren didn't say how he would arrange for us, and we don't even know what he looks like." The one speaking was a young and beautiful woman in her budding years. Although the material of the clothes she was wearing was ordinary linen, the workmanship was extremely exquisite, and it set off her temperament even more innocently. "What's wrong, little girl? I heard that our Lord is a handsome young man. What other thoughts can you have?" The other was a middle-aged woman dressed in plain clothes without any makeup. The young woman was immediately displeased by the other party's teasing and protested coquettishly, "Big sister, don't make fun of me. Although Qing is young, she knows the principle of gratitude. Darren saved me from the hands of the bandits, and Qing only feels grateful. I don't dare have any improper thoughts." "That's right. You don't know what kind of life I had in the bandit camp. It was simply unbearable." The middle-aged woman was clearly deeply moved. "However, I've heard of it. The chief officer of our territory supplies division, Sir Chui, used to wander in the wilderness just like us. Darren felt that her life was miserable, but he also cherished her talent. Not only did he regard her as his sworn sister, but he also entrusted her with important tasks. Sir Chui didn't disappoint Darren's trust and managed the supplies division in an orderly manner, winning everyone's respect. Yes, Chinger has also heard of it. Big Sister Chui is not only beautiful, but also very capable. Ching, who admires her greatly. The young woman was clearly still a young girl, and she worshipped you like an idol. Hey, little girl, don't belittle yourself. Your talent in tailoring is something I've never heard of before. Shanghai Village is also a land of outstanding people. Little sister, your future achievements will definitely not be inferior to Sir Chui's. The middle-aged woman was very knowledgeable. At this moment, Ouyang Shuo stood at the entrance of the courtyard with an awkward expression. From their conversation, He had already guessed that the two people in front of him should be the high-class chef Gu Sanyang and the high-class tailor Mu Qingxi that Gu Xiaowen had told him about in the morning. Inadvertently overhearing the private conversation between two girls, he didn't know whether to enter or retreat. Ahem! Ouyang Shuo deliberately coughed, and then leisurely walked into the courtyard. Ah! Mu Qingxi's face immediately turned red when she turned her head and saw Ouyang Shuo. The middle-aged woman, on the other hand, was calm and composed. She asked with uncertainty, "Is Sir back?" This humble woman, Gu Sanyang, pays her respects to Sir. "It's me. I was busy earlier and neglected the two of you. Please forgive me." This humble woman is terrified. "I was fortunate enough to be saved by Sir. This humble woman can't thank you enough." Gu Sanyang glanced at her new sister and saw that she had yet to regain her composure. She was standing to the side with a blushing face and was speechless. Gu Sanyang tugged at her sleeve. Mu Qingxi wasn't a girl who was easily embarrassed, but the conversation with Gu Sanyang just now was too intimate. Suddenly, the main character of the conversation, Ouyang Shuo, appeared in front of her. Naturally, she was embarrassed. She didn't know when Sir had arrived and how much he had heard. Her heart was restless, and she was also shy. When Ouyang Shuo opened his mouth to speak, she still hadn't adjusted her mood. When Gu Sanyang tugged at her sleeve, she reacted and hurriedly bowed. This humble woman, Mu Qingxi, pays her respects to Sir. Ouyang Shuo naturally understood the situation and pretended not to see her embarrassment. He warmly said, "Miss Mu is well. Are you used to living here? Many thanks for Sir's care. Everything is fine." Mu Qingxi began to stabilize her mood. "Qingxi thanks Sir for saving my life." She said this and was about to kneel down in front of Ouyang Shuo. Ouyang Shuo didn't allow this and hurriedly stepped forward to help her up. He earnestly said, "Miss Mu, please don't do this. I can't bear to see you like this. I'm a few years older than Mississippi. If Miss doesn't mind, you can treat me like an older brother." Towards this 18-year-old girl, Ouyang Shuo didn't think it was excessive. Mu Qingxi's face instantly turned red. She thought that Ouyang Shuo had overheard their conversation and thus said this. She hurriedly shook her head and said, "Qingxi's status is too low. I don't dare to have such extravagant hopes." Ouyang Shuo waved his hand. "You're wrong. Among the villagers of our Shanghai village, who hasn't had a rough past. However, as long as we join the Shanghai village, we're one big family. There's no such thing as high or low status. Let bygones be bygones. Everyone in the Shanghai village relies on their own abilities to fulfill their duties and earn their own living. Therefore, Miss shouldn't look down on yourself. If Miss doesn't agree, then I'll get angry." Ouyang Shuo deliberately put on a stern face and looked at Mu Qingxi. The little girl's eyes turned red when she heard Ouyang Shuo's words. She obediently called out, "Big brother." Ouyang Shuo responded and happily said, "That's right. In the Shanghai village, you don't need to have any psychological burden. Big brother has been fascinated by your tailoring skills for a long time." After comforting Mu Qingxi, Ouyang Shuo turned to Gu Sanyang and said, "I've heard Xiaowen praise Madame Gu's cooking skills. Madame will be in charge of the courtyard house's meals for now. When we build a restaurant in the future, we'll definitely ask Madame to cook." Gu Sanyang smiled. "Sanyang will follow Sir's arrangements." Chapter 25. Gaia Year 1, January 24th, sunny. Ouyang Shuo rode on Black Whirlwind, galloping through the wilderness. Ever since he got the steed, he rode it every morning in the territory to let out some fresh air. Compared to the narrow stable, Black Whirlwind clearly preferred the vast and endless wilderness. Spreading its hooves, it welcomed the morning sun and ran to its heart's content. By the Friendship River, 2,000 mu of farmland had been reclaimed. It was neat and square with no end in sight. The water from the Friendship River was diverted to the farmland through ditches, forming a simple and practical irrigation system. The farmers were planting potato seedlings and burying them in the ground, looking forward to the harvest. Ouyang Shuo rode his horse past the farmland and looked at the continuous farmland, as well as the farmers who were busy working in the fields. He seemed to see hope, the hope of harvesting. The territory's food supply, for the first half of the year, depended on these potatoes. He roughly checked, and according to the current progress, he estimated that all the potatoes would be planted by tomorrow. He was very satisfied with the efficiency of the Department of Agriculture. Zhao Dexin was indeed a talent, whether it was the construction team from before or the current Department of Agriculture. He had managed everything in an orderly manner and had never disappointed Ouyang Shuo, the lore before. Ouyang Shuo believed that after this experience, Zhao Dexin would be qualified for an even more important position in the future, becoming his important assistant. He rode his horse back from the farmland, and in less than half an hour, he returned to the village. 2 arrow towers had been erected on both sides of the village entrance, each with 2 crossbow cavalrymen stationed in turn, firmly guarding the village entrance. After passing through the village entrance, the first thing that came into view was the preliminary commercial street. Beginner grocery stores, intermediate blacksmiths, intermediate carpentry workshops, advanced tailors, advanced dojos, and other buildings stood on both sides of the street, bringing vitality to the territory. That's right, they were advanced tailors and dojos, not beginner tailors and beginner dojos. This was related to the setting of building levels in the game. In the game, all buildings could be divided into 5 categories. The first category was simple fences, residential courtyards, arrow towers, ferry terminals, stables, and other buildings that purely provided living space. These types of buildings did not have levels and could not be upgraded after they were built. If they wanted to replace them, they could only demolish and rebuild them. For example, after the simple fence was removed, a more solid brick wall could be built. The second type were production buildings such as blacksmiths, tailors, carpentry workshops, martial arts halls, and medical centers. The function of this type of building was mainly dependent on the skill level of the skilled personnel. For example, a blacksmith shop could only forge farming tools or weapons. It wasn't the level of the shop itself, but the skill levels of the blacksmiths in the shop. The level of this type of building was directly linked to the level of the skill talent. For example, after Li Taiju was promoted to an intermediate blacksmith, the basic blacksmith shop was also promoted to an intermediate blacksmith. The third type was buildings like shipyards. For this type of building to realize its function, it not only depended on the level of skilled personnel, but also the facilities of the building itself. Taking the shipyard as an example, even if it had an advanced shipwright, the shipyard's dock and other facilities were still at the basic level, so the shipyard's grade was still at the basic level. The upgrade of this type of building required both the skill level of the skilled personnel and the level of the building itself. The fourth category was buildings such as village temples, ancestral halls, primary markets, and primary barracks. For this type of building to realize its function, it didn't need skilled personnel at all. Instead, it relied on the building itself to realize its function. Therefore, the upgrade of this type of building could only be achieved by building blueprints of a higher level. The fifth category consisted of resource collection buildings, such as primary lumberyards, primary quarries, and primary mines. The level of this type of building was related to the storage of resources and the number of people mining. If the storage of resources was rich enough, as long as the number of people mining increased, it could be directly promoted. According to the game's settings, buildings with less than 100 people were basic, buildings with more than 100 people and less than 500 people were intermediate, buildings with more than 500 people and less than 1,000 people were advanced, and buildings with more than 1,000 people were special. Passing through the commercial street, Ouyang Shuo returned to his office. On his desk, there was a document. It was sure Wansue's defense plan for the wild beasts attacking the city. He wasn't in a hurry to read the document. When he passed by the commercial street, just now, he saw the shabby clothes of the villagers. He suddenly realized that he should do something for them. The villagers worked tirelessly every day, and all he provided for them was just enough to fill their stomachs. He still remembered that when Zhao Dexin and his team came to Shanghai Village, he had made a promise that he would let the villagers have clothes to wear, food to eat, houses to live in, and fields to plow. The villagers were still wearing the tattered clothes that they used to wander here. Even a girl like Chui Yingyu didn't have a set of decent clothes. Now, there was Mu Qingxi as senior tailor. Fortunately, the territory's funds were still abundant, so it was time to improve everyone's clothing conditions. Second baby, Ouyang Shuo shouted outside the door. Yes, second baby was playing in the courtyard. When he heard Ouyang Shuo calling him, he quickly responded and ran into the office. Go and invite your sister Chui and Sister Mu to my office. Tell them that I have something to discuss with them. Okay, second brother answered readily and trotted out of the office. Taking advantage of this time, Ouyang Shuo began to read the defense plan for the wild beasts attacking the city that Shi Wansui had drawn up. In this plan, Shi Wansui explained the defense strategy of the territory in detail. The core content could be summed up in 8 words: active defense, active attack. Active defense was to expand the range of defense to the entire territory. Specifically speaking, on the basis of the village's defense, they had to set up many defensive traps outside the village. Wild beasts were wild beasts after all. They didn't have high intelligence like the human army. When the wild beasts attacked the city, they would be in a berserk and irrational state. Taking advantage of this, they could randomly set up hidden pits in the territory and insert sharpened wooden spikes into the pits. It was guaranteed that the wild beasts wouldn't be able to escape. Active attack was to take full advantage of the cavalry with bows and crossbows. They couldn't hide in the village and kill the beasts passively. Instead, they should take advantage of the cavalry's flexibility and speed to take the initiative to attack and fight guerrilla warfare. After reading the plan, Ouyang Shuo secretly nodded and approved of Shi Wansui's strategy. 10 minutes later, Chui Yingyu and Mu Qingxi came hand in hand. After getting along for a few days, the two of them had become sisters who could talk about anything. Their relationship was so deep that they were even closer than their big brother, Ouyang Shuo. Big brother, you called me and big sister over. What important matter do you have to discuss? Mu Qingxi teased Ouyang Shuo as soon as she entered the door. After getting along for a few days, she felt that her big brother, the Lord, was amiable and approachable. She was no longer as shy as she used to be. She had become natural and unrestrained. Naturally, there's an important matter. Otherwise, how would I dare to disturb our Miss Qing? Ouyang Shuo didn't want to be outdone and teased her. This little girl, ever since she understood his nature, she became more and more lawless. Although he deliberately indulged her, he couldn't let her be too naughty. Being teased by Ouyang Shuo, this girl finally felt a little embarrassed. In the end, this was her nature. She secretly muttered, "Humph, bad big brother. You only know how to tease Qing? So bad." Looking at Mu Qingxi's childish temperament, Ouyang Shuo couldn't help but think of his own sister, Ouyang Bing. Although there was some age gap between the two, they were both innocent, naive, and adorable. Thinking about it, when Binger also entered the game, the two would definitely play together. Ouyang Shuo didn't pay attention to her muttering and turned to look at Chui Yingyu. This time I called you two over to do a big thing for the territory. This matter needs you and Qing, to cooperate. Chui Yingyu looked at Ouyang Shuo doubtfully and asked, "May I know what Big Brother is planning?" It's like this. Didn't we plunder 32 gold coins from the roving bandits last time? After deducting the 10 gold coins used to buy the building blueprints, we still have more than 20 gold coins left. In addition, Qing Er's tailor shop has officially opened. I'm thinking whether I can buy a batch of linen from the primary market and buy a new set of clothes for every villager in the territory. It could be considered as a special reward for everyone's hard work during this period of time. Chui Yingyu smiled and said sincerely, "Big Brother's action is very good." Does Big Brother refer to every villager in particular, or does it include the villagers who will join later? I intend to include this treatment in the basic welfare of the territory. Therefore, it is a long-term policy. When the village was founded, I made a promise to the villagers. As a lord, I naturally have to keep my word. In the past, there were no conditions, but now there are conditions. Naturally, I can't go back on my word. Hearing this, Mu Qingxi's big eyes blinked as she looked at Ouyang Shua. Her face was full of worship. Wow, big brother, Qing, found that I worship you more and more. What should I do? Ouyang Shua coughed and said lightly, Don't worship big brother. I'm just a legend. TSK, big brother is so narcissistic. Shameful. This girl was really getting more and more unscrupulous. Ouyang Shua didn't care about her and directly asked, Qing, when it comes to making clothes, you, as a senior tailor, naturally have the most say. Tell big brother how many bolts of cloth are needed to realize this benefit, and how long it will take. Mu Qingxi pondered for a moment. According to Qing, Er's knowledge, a bolt of cloth is usually 30 meters long. According to the average cloth used for a set of clothes, we can make 12 sets of clothes. According to the population of a second-class village of 500 people, we will need about 42 bolts of cloth. Qing is now leading 4 apprentices, so we can make 20 sets of clothes every day. Ouyang Shua nodded and looked at the 2 people. It seems that this will be a long-term project, so I will divide the work here. I will be responsible for buying the bolts of cloth. Qing will naturally be responsible for tailoring the clothes to the villagers. You will be responsible for putting the clothes and arranging the batches of the clothes. In principle, the batches will be divided according to the principle of first come, first served. In addition, I'm going to buy an additional bolt of brocade to make new clothes for the 2 sisters. Just treat it as a meeting gift from Big Brother. The 2 sisters must not decline. Girls were still very concerned about their own image. After a slight decline, the 2 gladly accepted. Chapter 26. Ouyang Shua arrived at the primary market and opened the material trading platform. He first checked the prices. 1 bolt of linen was sold for 10 silver coins, and 1 bolt of brocade was sold for 50 silver coins. In this case, 42 bolts of linen and 1 bolt of brocade were sold for a total of 470 silver coins, which was less than 5 gold coins. This also showed how powerful the purchasing power of gold coins was. When he came out of the wooden house, and you had already brought the people from the supplies division to move the bolts of cloth. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ouyang Shua sorted out the wild beast furs in his storage pouch. The most precious ones were, of course, the 4 quality 8 wild boar king furs and 2 quality 6 mutated wild boar furs. In addition, there were 30 damaged wild beast furs with quality 1, 40 normal wild beast furs with quality 2, and 10 perfect wild beast furs with quality 4. He took out all the furs from his storage pouch and gave them to Qing, together with the bolts of cloth. After dealing with the cloth, he prepared to go to the blacksmith shop to check on the progress of the arrow production. The consumption of arrows was very fast. Previously, they had seized 10,000 arrows from the bandit camp, but after distributing them to each soldier, there were only 20 arrows left. These arrows could barely satisfy the daily training. In order to deal with the upcoming monster attack, Ouyang Shua had already ordered the blacksmith, Li Taizhu, to rush the production of arrows a few days ago. When he walked into the blacksmith shop, it was in full swing. Coincidentally, the squad leader of the first fire, Zhang Dinyo, was bringing 4 soldiers to the blacksmith shop to move the forged arrows. Seeing Ouyang Shua, Zhang Dinyo hurriedly saluted. Sir, how is it? Are you all used to the job change? Ouyang Shua asked. After the job change, everyone is very happy. We have changed our guns into cannons. General Shi has set a strict training mission for the cavalry, so everyone is holding back. That's good. Ouyang Shua turned to look at Li Taizhu. Masterly, you have worked hard these few days. How many arrows have been made? Sir, since we received the mission, the blacksmith shop has already made 1,500 arrows. According to this progress, we can still make another 160 arrows before the monster attack. Not bad, the efficiency is quite high. Ouyang Shua nodded his head in satisfaction. With these 3,000 arrows, it would be more than enough to deal with a monster attack this time. Dainyu, after you return to the barracks, I'll tell you everything. Tell General Shi that I've seen his defense plan and that it's very good. Tell him to start preparing according to the defense plan. Yes. All right. I'm relieved to see that the production of the arrows went smoothly. You guys go back to work." When he returned to the Lord's mansion, Gu Sanyang was already preparing lunch. Ever since this high-class chef entered the small courtyard, the standard of food in the small courtyard had directly risen by 2 or 3 levels. Therefore, as long as they weren't tied down by something important, the people living in the small courtyard would come back on time to eat. The only exception was Shi Wansui. Ever since the formation of the crossbow cavalry, this general's passion for training soldiers had been thoroughly stimulated. From then on, he lived with the soldiers in the barracks, ate with them, and spent less and less time returning to his courtyard. At Ouyang Shua's place, there was no rule of not talking while eating or sleeping. Taking the opportunity to eat, everyone sat together, and it was convenient for them to talk about the work they were responsible for. Many times, cross-departmental communication and coordination were settled at the dining table. After eating 2 mouthfuls of food, Qing became restless. She giggled and said to him, "Big brother, you're too bad." Ouyang Shua was baffled by her words and had a puzzled expression on his face. "What do you mean? I didn't bully you." The others also looked at Qing, curiously, waiting to see what kind of earth-shattering words this girl was going to say. Smelly big brother. Among the wild beast pelts you took out this morning, there was actually a high-quality pelt with a grade of 8. Big brother, you didn't even tell Qing about it and mixed it with those pelts that only had a grade of 1 or 2. If it wasn't for Qing attentiveness, she would have thrown them to the apprentices to practice. If that was really the case, it would really be a reckless waste of God's resources. Big brother, tell me, aren't you bad? Qing was obviously very proud of herself and said a lot of things. Ouyang Shua was a little embarrassed. This was indeed his mistake. At that time, I indeed forgot to tell you. Fortunately, our family's Qing is perceptive and meticulous, so he didn't make an irreparable mistake. This is a merit. He obviously knew what this girl liked to hear and praised her with all his might. Sure enough, Qing's eyes narrowed from Ouyang Shua's praise. He, with such high-quality pelts, Qing can sew high-level leather armor for Big Brother. Great, then Big Brother will thank Qing in advance. The lunch ended in this kind of laughter. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shua didn't go anywhere and stayed in the office to read. In the game, although there was no such thing as a reading skill, when reading to a certain extent, it would increase the innate attribute of comprehension. Therefore, ever since the office had a bookshelf, Ouyang Shua liked to stay in the office to read when he had nothing to do. While he was playing time, he also looked forward to when he could increase his comprehension. Because of the high degree of realism in the game, reading in the game was really the same as reading in reality. He had to read it carefully, word by word, and not just casually flip through page after page, putting on an act. Gaia year January 1st, 25, sunny, suitable for travel and planting, avoid migration and opening the market. In the Lord's Mansion's meeting hall, all the officers had arrived. Ouyang Shua began to preside over this week's meeting. Everyone, there is only one topic for today's meeting, and that is how to deal with the monster's attack in 5 days. First, General Shi, please introduce the territory's defense plan. After Shi Wansui finished his introduction, he began to focus on the matters that required the cooperation of the various departments. First, we need the cooperation of the Census Bureau and the hunters. In the entire plan, setting up a defensive chain of traps is a very important part. Therefore, we need the cooperation of the hunters, especially the hunters who are good at setting up traps. Gu Shoen stood up and said with a smile, "General Shi, don't worry. I was just about to report to the Lord that there were 2 special talents among the refugees that spawned today. One of them is an intermediate hunter." Shi Wansui laughed when he heard this. This is really timely. Where is he now? Ouyang Shua waved his hand. General Shi, there's no need to be so anxious. Shoen's handling of matters is naturally reassuring. Shoen, why don't you take this opportunity to introduce these 2 special talents to us? All right, the hunter's name is Yang Jue. He's a young man, only 25 years old. The other person is an old man called Fan Jin. He's a scholar. Gu Xiaowen said concisely. Oh, this is double happiness. Ouyang Shuo didn't want to go into detail. After all, the theme this time was the monster's attack. He looked at Shi Wansui again. General Shi, please continue. Shi Wansui continued. Since there are already hunters, I hope that the Construction Bureau will cooperate with us in digging up the traps. Also, we will mark the edges of the traps. We need to inform the villagers to pay attention to their steps when they go out and not fall into the traps. Yes, we do need to pay attention to this. Xiaowen, drop a notice explaining the traps clearly and post it at the village entrance. Ouyang Shuo said to Gu Xiaowen. Yes, Gu Xiaowen naturally wouldn't decline this kind of task. Also, I have a suggestion. We can mobilize all the villagers and have them participate in the territory's defense. I suggest that the lumberyard produce a batch of wooden javelins as soon as possible. General Shi can arrange for the cavalry to organize javelin throwing training for the villagers. He didn't expect a scholar like Gu Xiaowen to have such a military mind. Ouyang Shuo nodded approvingly. Not bad. Xiaowen's idea is good. I agree. Shi Wansui looked at Gu Xiaowen in surprise. I agree too. The Supplies Bureau has no problem too. I estimate that we can produce about 10,000 simple javelins in the next 5 days, Chui Ingyu replied. As for the Construction Bureau, other than the private school, all the other buildings have been completed. We can cooperate with a hunter called Yang Zhui to dig the traps. Ouyang Shuo said to Zhao Duong. Zhao Duong agreed readily as well. At this time, the Director General Zhao Dexin stood up and said solemnly, Sir, I have something to say. Oh, Director General Zhao, please speak. Sir, I'm worried that when the monsters attack the city, the wild beasts will trample on the planted potatoes. The potatoes were the territory's hope. He couldn't ignore it. That's a problem. Does anyone have any good ideas? Shi Wansui said casually, Sir, don't worry. The farmland is located by the Friendship River and belongs to the border of the territory. According to my speculation, the wild beasts will rush directly to the village and won't wander around. Therefore, we just need to dig a trench at the edge of the farmland and scatter some animal dung. I believe that the wild beasts will avoid the farmland. Even if there are some idiots who accidentally enter the farmland, the damage won't be too great. We can definitely fix it. Zhao Dexin heard and laughed. General, this is a great idea. The trench we dig will not be wasted and will be connected to the irrigation system. Wonderful, wonderful. Shi Wansui chuckled. He didn't think too much and only thought about it from the perspective of military defense. Seeing that everyone was almost done with their discussion, Ouyang Shuo ended the meeting. Regarding the territory's defense, everyone has thought of many good countermeasures. After coming down, I hope that everyone will carry out their duties and actively prepare for war. Also, Xiaowen, it just so happens that Dr. Song has moved to the medical center. Arrange for old Mr. Fan to live in the courtyard house temporarily. Yes. Chapter 27. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shuo came to the southeast area of the village, which was the planned cultural and educational area. The newly built medical center, ancestral hall, and private school were all in this area. He first walked into Dr. Song's medical center to visit this old man who was very proud. Since the last apprenticeship incident, as long as he had time, he would take some time to visit the medical center. The medical center was divided into 2 parts. The front part was for medicine and treatment, and the back part was for accommodation. When Ouyang Shuo came in, Dr. Song was treating a patient. He did not want to disturb him, so after a simple greeting, he walked out of the medical center. Then he walked into the ancestral hall next to it. The village ancestral hall was also divided into 2 parts. In the front was a building similar to a gate, in the middle was a square, and in the back was the ancestral hall. Because Shanghai Village was built by players, there was no such thing as a clan. The refugees in the village all had different surnames. Therefore, Ouyang Shuo chose the ancestor of Chinese civilization, the Yellow Emperor, to worship in the ancestral hall. Next to the ancestral hall was the Mazu Temple, which was now full of incense. Among the villagers of Shanghai Village, More than 80% of them chose to worship Mazu. Not far away was the private school that was being built. Zhao Duong personally supervised it, so Ouyang Shuo did not disturb him. Instead, he returned to the Lord's mansion. On January 27th, the private school opened for lessons. The village private school mainly focused on elementary education. The headmaster taught everyone how to read. After learning about 1,000 characters, he taught them the 3-character classic, the 100 family names, and the 1,000-character classic. Most of the students were children of the village. Including the second child, there were a total of 12 people. What was more special was that according to Ouyang Shuo's request, the private school also opened an adult literacy class to teach the talents that Ouyang Shuo intended to train to read and write. Among them were civil officials such as Zhao Yufang, the junior director of the lumberyard, Zheng Shanpao, the junior director of the quarry, and Yuan Xiaoping, the junior director of the mining, as well as military officers such as Zhang Daniu, the first squad leader, Buttface, the second squad leader, Zhao Sihu, the fourth squad leader, and Li Mingliang, the fifth squad leader. These people were all illiterate, yet they all held important positions. In order to train them, Ouyang Shuo gave them a strict order. No matter how busy they were, these people had to study at the private school for half a day every day. At the same time, he specially instructed Old Master Fan Jin to inspect their progress every day. If there are any unqualified ones, report to him immediately. He naturally had a way to deal with these bastards. At the opening ceremony of the adult literacy class, Ouyang Shuo said, "Everyone, you are all very lucky." At this age, he still had the chance to re-enter the academy. Most of you were farmers before you came to Shanghai Village. Perhaps you have all dreamed of reading books. When you were young, entering a private school was something you didn't even dare to think about. Now that you've grown up, you feel that studying is nothing. Even though you can't read, you're still alive and well. I want to say that you are wrong, very wrong. The you who came to the Shanghai Village is no longer the same person as before. Among you, there are field chiefs who manage the territory's strategic resources and reserve generals who lead the troops. What you're doing now, and what you will do in the future, is much more important and difficult than what you did before you came to the Mountain Sea Village. Power is responsibility. I put you in important positions not to let you enjoy power, but to fulfill your responsibilities. Therefore, if you want to go further and more steadily, you must build a solid foundation. If your foundation is not solid, the earth will shake. I don't want you to be left behind because you can't read at some point in the future. When that time comes, I can tell you very seriously that no one will wait for you. So, please cherish this opportunity. I can tell you very clearly that this is only a small part of the territory's training plan, just a starting point. In the future, there will be more opportunities to study at a higher level. When that time comes, I hope to see you again and give you another lecture. Of the 7 people sitting below, some listened, some seemed to understand, and some are muddle-headed. As for what would happen, it would depend on their own luck. After Ouyang Shuo finished his lecture, he gave the podium to Old Master Fan. Old Master Fan was already in his 40s, but he was full of energy and his body was still healthy. He wasn't a pedantic scholar who would easily forget things, but a true scholar. Ouyang Shuo respected this kind of scholar very much. He sat at the back of the classroom in high spirits and listened attentively to the first lesson of the adult literacy class together with this group of students. After the lesson, Ouyang Shuo walked out of the private school and headed toward the business street in front of the school. Last night, Chinger had mentioned to him that the leather armor made from the wild boar king's hide had been completed and that he should remember to go to the tailor's shop to get it. During this time, Ching and her 4 apprentices had been so busy that they didn't even have time to rest. It wasn't an easy task to complete the target of 500 sets of ready-made clothes. Although Ching was usually mischievous, she wasn't careless when it came to doing things. She was very serious, and she was also strict with her apprentices. It was said that when the 4 apprentices saw her, they were like mice seeing a cat. They were very afraid. Ouyang Shuo couldn't imagine that this childish little sister of his had such a side to her. Well, in this world, there was no success that came by chance. This little lass was able to become a senior tailor at this age. Talent was no doubt important, but her own efforts, as well as her dedication and love for tailoring, were the most important. Sure enough, when Ouyang Shuo walked into the tailor's shop, they all had their heads down, busy sewing clothes on the workbench. He stood at the door for nearly 10 minutes, but no one noticed him. Looking at the little lass Qing, serious appearance in her work, Ouyang Shuo felt even more pity for her. However, on the surface, Ouyang Shuo wasn't prepared to treat her too well. This lass was very mischievous, and her ability to climb up along the pole was also not small. If he pampered her too much, Ouyang Shuo reckoned that she would go to heaven. Cough, Qing big brother is here. Why aren't you coming to greet me? Ouyang Shuo deliberately teased. Qing raised her head, pouted her small mouth, and said, Humph, bad big brother. Can't you see that your cute little sister is busy? I'm risking my life for you, but you still haven't rewarded me. Well, Ouyang Shuo couldn't win against her in an argument, so he could only forcefully change the topic. Didn't you tell me yesterday that the leather armor was ready? I came to get it. The leather armor that was made this time is gold grade. Big brother, how are you going to reward me? What? Gold grade leather armor? According to his estimation, he would already be very satisfied if it was a silver grade leather armor. He didn't expect that this time, Qing would really give him a big surprise. It's genuine at a fair price. I don't cheat anyone. As Qing spoke, she took out a black leather armor, a pair of dark red boots, and a pair of wrist guard from the side. Ouyang Shuo held the leather armor in his hand and carefully looked at it. The leather armor was black in color, and it was made up of large pieces of armor sewn together with leather strips. Moreover, it wasn't a single layer, but was made up of many layers of leather. There were also metal ornamental buckles hanging from the joints of the armor. The whole leather armor looked steady and imposing. The design was fashionable, and it didn't affect its practical function. The whole thing matched Ouyang Shuo's temperament very well, making him unable to put it down. Ouyang Shuo couldn't help but sigh. Qing talent in tailoring was really heaven-defying. At such a young age, not only was she skilled, but she also knew how to make personalized designs according to different users. He couldn't wait to check the attributes of the leather armor. Name, Barbaric Gargold. Type, leather armor. Weight, 3 kg. Defense, 45. Toughness, 50. Creator, Mu Qingxi has the right to name the equipment. Evaluation, high-level tailor Mu Qingxi, made from the skin of a wild boar king with a grade of 8. Exquisite workmanship, reasonable design, excellent protection. It was really powerful. 45 points of defense and 50 points of toughness were enough to ensure that weapons below the gold level would be hard to break through without the infusion of inner force. Seeing Ouyang Shuo's surprised expression, Qing seemed extremely happy. She was the one who named the leather armor, and it was exactly what she wanted. She hoped that this leather armor could replace her and protect her brother. With Qing's help, Ouyang Shuo put on the leather armor and immediately felt a lot safer. From now on, he didn't have to worry about being shot at. Not bad, it's really amazing. Our Qing is really amazing. At this moment, Ouyang Shuo was not stingy with his praise for Qing. Hee, of course, I'm a genius girl. Qing never knew the meaning of modesty. No matter what kind of praise she received, she would accept it all. That's right, big brother. Here's a pair of wrist guards and a pair of boots. They were made from the skin of a mutated wild boar. Although they can't compare to leather armor, they are still silver-level equipment. Qing handed the boots and wrist guards to Ouyang Shuo as if they were treasures. Ouyang Shuo took the boots and wrist guards and checked their attributes. Name, Barbaric wrist guards, silver level. Type, leather armor. Weight, 1 kg. Defense, 30. Toughness, 40. Creator, Mu Qingxi has the right to name the equipment. Evaluation, high-level tailor Mu Qingxi, made from the skin of a mutated wild boar with a grade of 6. Exquisite workmanship, reasonable design, excellent protection. Name, Barbaric war boots, silver level. Type, leather armor. Weight, 15 kg. Defense, 30. Toughness, 40. Creator, Mu Qingxi has the right to name the equipment. Evaluation: high-level Tailor Mu Qingxi, made from the skin of a mutated wild boar with a grade of 6. Exquisite workmanship, reasonable design, excellent protection. Heh, all these have been put together into a barbarian set. Qing, Er's naming skills still need to be improved. After putting on the wrist guards and boots, Ouyang Shua couldn't help but check his personal attributes again. Name: don't say you don't have clothes. Title: famous scholar, increases favorability of historical characters by 10. Territory: Shanghai Village. Achievement: 140,000/160,000. Title: third rank Viscount. Occupation: general. Part-time. Level 20, 110, 2754/119, 980. Reputation: famous far and near. 140,000/10,000. Root bone: 18. Perception: 20. Fortune source: 5. Charm: 8. Commander: 29. Force: 9. Intelligence: 9. Politics: 29. Talent: lock skills: none. Skills: intermediate gathering technique, beginner shipbuilding technique, beginner diplomacy technique, beginner detection technique, beginner weapon mastery technique, basic horsemanship technique, basic marksmanship technique, basic archery technique. Mount: high-quality war horse, gold level. Equipment: ring of courage, black iron level. Beginner composite bow, black iron level. Fine iron sword, silver level. High-quality fine iron spear, gold level. Barbaric guard, gold level. Barbaric bracers, silver level. Barbaric war boots, silver level. Chapter 28. Just as Ouyang Shua walked out of the tailor's shop, a system announcement sounded in his ears. World announcement: Gaia Year 1, January 1st. Countless mutants descended from the heavens into the wilderness, cutting through thorns and thorns, using the sharp swords in their hands to expand territory and establish a foundation. In a month's time, countless beasts of the wilderness have been slaughtered. As the saying goes, retribution comes in the cycle of the heavens. It is also said that the weak are prey to the strong. The victor is king. Therefore, the beasts of the wilderness will gather under the leadership of the various races in 3 days, which is Gaia Year 1, February 1st, and simultaneously attack the player's territories. Swear to use the blood of the lords to wash away the grievances of the same race. All lords, please prepare for war. Use the sharp swords in your hands to defend the dignity of the lords. World announcement: the monster attack this time is a mandatory global territorial defense mission. Any village whose territory is breached by the beasts will be removed. Territories that successfully defend against the beasts will receive additional rewards. During the mission period, there will be 3 major rankings: regional, national, and world. The top 10 of each ranking will receive generous rewards. For those who enter 2 or more rankings, the rewards will be based on the ladder. Those who enter the latter ranking will not occupy the spots of the previous ranking. During the mission period, non-residents are not allowed to stay in the territory. World announcement: the rewards for the top 10 regional rankings are as follows. First place will be rewarded with 100 achievement points. Every time you fall behind, 10 achievement points will be deducted. World announcement: the rewards for the top 10 national rankings are as follows. First place will be rewarded with 100 achievement points and 100 gold coins. Every time you fall behind, you'll lose 100 merit points and 10 gold coins. World announcement: the rewards for the top 10 global rankings are as follows. First place will be rewarded with 300 achievement points and 600 gold coins. Every time they fell behind by 1 rank, they would lose 200 merit points and 50 gold coins. In addition, first place will be rewarded with a random hidden building. Second place will be rewarded with a random special item. Third place will be rewarded with a random beginner commander's tally. The moment the system announcement came out, the whole world was in an uproar. The weak were worried that their territories would be destroyed and panicked. The strong, or ambitious ones who thought they were strong, were completely tempted by the system's rewards. They became hot-blooded and excited. All of them rubbed their fists, determined to compete with the lords of the world. Even Ouyang Shaw, who knew the news in advance, couldn't help but feel excited when he saw the generous rewards. His goal was to ensure that he entered the top 10 of the world rankings and strive to enter the top 3. In order to achieve this goal, he needed a secret weapon. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shuo walked into the barracks. In the barracks, apart from the patrolling soldiers and those who were on garrison duty, the rest of the soldiers were practicing archery on the drill ground. Seeing him enter, everyone stopped training and lined up to welcome him. Ouyang Shuo gestured for the soldiers to continue training and pulled Shi Wansui to the side. "General, you've worked hard during this period." Shi Wansui chuckled. "This general likes this kind of military life. That's good. What's the standard of these soldiers now?" Ouyang Shuo asked directly. Shi Wansui said proudly, "After this period of training, all the soldiers have been promoted to Tier 2. Other than Lin Yi, the other 4 squad leaders are all at level 3. Very good. General's training does not disappoint. How are the traps in the territory coming along? Because the territory is very large, I plan to set up 4 defensive traps in the territory." After a few days of hard work, they had finished setting up 2 defensive chains. Based on this progress, we should be able to finish everything in 2 days. Shi Wansui was not careless. He was ambitious as well. For defensive chains meant at least 1,000 traps to be set up. Ouyang Shuo nodded and asked, "General, have you heard of fierce fire oil?" Fierce fire oil. Is the master talking about the black magical liquid that can be ignited directly? Indeed, the general is very knowledgeable. Shi Wansui smiled embarrassedly. Is there a deeper meaning to the master asking about fierce fire oil? Indeed, if we can buy large amounts of fierce fire oil, would it help the general's defense plan? Shi Wansui paused and was overjoyed. That will be very helpful. Unlike us, beasts are afraid of fire. If we have fierce fire oil, we can set up a fierce fire formation in front of the village. I'm confident that we can destroy them in one fell swoop. All right, I have nothing to worry about with the general's words. General, bring the soldiers and follow me to the primary market to buy fierce fire oil. Ouyang Shuo said happily. Shi Wansui immediately picked 20 soldiers and followed Ouyang Shuo to the primary market. Ouyang Shuo walked into the wooden hut and opened the material trading platform to search for fierce fire oil. Fierce fire oil was sold in barrels. Each barrel contained 50 liters and was sold for 1 silver coin. On the way here, Shi Wansui roughly estimated that to complete the fierce fire formation, he would need 40,000 liters of fierce fire oil, which was 800 barrels. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, Ouyang Shuo gritted his teeth and spent 10 gold coins to buy 100 barrels of fierce fire oil. In addition, in order to strengthen the territory's warning ability, Ouyang Shuo spent the last 10 gold coins to buy a building blueprint for a sentry tower. The sentry tower was made of stone and was very difficult to break through. At the same time, the sentry tower was equipped with a beacon that could send out warning information. Each sentry tower could accommodate 2 sentries. Stone Sentry Tower, primary military installation, has a strong defense and detection ability. Construction requirements: 20 units of wood, 200 units of stone. Construction time: 1 day. On the square in front of the wooden hut, Shi Wansui grinned as he commanded the soldiers to transport the fierce fire oil to the barracks. This thing was dangerous. No one would be at ease if it was placed anywhere else. Ouyang Shuo gave the building blueprint to Shi Wansui and asked him to pass it to Zhao Duong of the construction division. As for the location of the sentry tower and the subsequent garrisons, Shi Wansui was naturally in charge of it. According to his plan, it would be best to build more than 3 sentry towers to ensure a smooth warning system. After coming out of the market, Ouyang Shuo finally felt more relaxed. Facing the upcoming monster attack, he had already done everything he could. The entire territory was like a meat grinder. The key to victory or defeat in a war was nothing more than the right time, the right place, and the right people. There was no need to talk about the right time. Relying on the advantage of his rebirth, He had been preparing for this war since the day his village was upgraded to a level 2 village. As for the other lords, they only had 3 days to prepare. They also had the advantage of the terrain. Relying on the 4 defensive traps, the early warning of the sentry tower, and the killing blow of the fierce fire formation, they used the geographical advantage to the extreme. Finally, there was the right people, which was an even bigger advantage. Relying on the primary commander's seal, the territory's army had long since left the era of militia and entered the ranks of the regular army. Coupled with Shi Wansui, one of the top 10 fierce generals in history, they were simply successful in every endeavor. Finally, there was the strong logistical support. Sufficient arrows and a large number of javelins were enough to ensure the consumption of this war. After returning to the Lord's mansion, Ouyang Shuo read in his office for an hour and then went offline. In reality, it was already the cold winter season. The leaves in the district's garden began to slowly turn yellow, and one by one, they fell onto the path. Ouyang Shuo ran on the gravel road, enjoying the fresh morning air, his body and mind carefree. When he returned home with breakfast, Sun Xiaoya and Binger were already up. When the two beauties saw the breakfast in Ouyang Shuo's hands, they looked at each other and smiled, then sat at the dining table with great tacit understanding. Some people say that habit is a very scary thing. Before Ouyang Shuo and Binger moved in, Sun Xiaoya's breakfast was sporadic. In just a month, she was already used to having hot soy milk and youtiao in the morning. She was used to having a sumptuous dinner waiting for her after school in the afternoon. She was even used to accompanying Binger to do her homework at night and telling her fairy tales. Unknowingly, whether it was her diet or her daily routine, there had been a huge change. Sun Xiao didn't notice at all. Maybe this was fate between people. This kind of wonderful fate allowed her to naturally bring Ouyang Shuo and his sister into her life. In a trance, they had already known each other for a long time. Now they were like a family, living under the same roof, natural and harmonious. As usual, after sending Binger to school, Ouyang Shuo returned home and switched on his optical computer. Today's forum was especially lively. Needless to say, the source of all this was the announcement that the system made last night. The headline of the pinned post was a survey. The theme of the survey was to guess who would be in the top 10 of the China region this time. Also, it was to guess how many places the Lord of the China region would occupy in the world rankings. Without a doubt, the 6 Lords of Handan were still the most popular candidates. What everyone was interested in, other than the 6 Lords of Handan, was who else could occupy a place in the top 10 of the China region. Among the list of candidates, Ouyang Shuo made it onto the list based on his reputation as the 6th village to be promoted to level 2. Other than him, there was also Xiongba of Tyrant Village, Piaoling Huan of Luoyi Village, Lao Ai of Mischievous Stone Village, and Bai Hua of Lingxi Village. Other than Bai Hua, these 4 were the lords of the top 10 villages in the China region that had been promoted to level 2. Bai Hua was able to make it onto the list because of her ID. As a mysterious player who had occupied the number 1 spot in China's Esport Hall of Fame for a long time, it was not too much to pay attention to her. The most heated topic was the prediction of how many people from the China region would be able to enter the top 10 of the world rankings. Without a doubt, as the most influential player in the China region, Di Chun of the 6 Lords of Handan was the most popular candidate. As for the others, they were not sure. After all, the world was too big, and there were crouching tigers and hidden dragons everywhere. Most of the people boldly predicted that with the huge population of the China region, at least 2 people would be able to enter the world rankings. Ouyang Shuo looked at the guesses of these players and did not say a word. From what he knew, in his previous life, only Di Chun from the China region was ranked 3rd in the world rankings. The others did not make it onto the list. The other 9 places were occupied by the USA, Canada, Russia, Korea, Japan, England, Germany, France, and India. Not a single country was able to occupy 2 slots. From this, it could be seen how intense the competition was. This time, with Ouyang Shuo as the biggest variable, no one knew what the final outcome would be. Chapter 29. The first day of the second month of the first year of Gaia. Good for prayer, migration, avoid traveling, and erecting books. Greater than over equal to at dawn, 3 members of the cavalry left the barracks and went straight to the sentry tower outside the village. The construction division had built 3 sentry towers in the territory, with each tower 2 kilometers apart. Due to the limited manpower, each tower had a soldier stationed there. Their mission was to keep an eye on the beast's movements and alert the camp with smoke signals. At the same time, the 1st, 3rd, and 5th fire of the crossbowmen left from the west gate under Lin Yi's command, heading for the primary mining area in the south. The mining area was located at the edge of the forest on the west side, only 300 meters away from the forest. According to the terrain of Shanghai Village, the south side of the village was at the foot of the Rocky Mountain Range. There wouldn't be any beasts there. Not far from the east was a wide river and canyon. There would only be a few beasts there, nothing to worry about. As a result, the beasts would mainly appear in the forest on the west side and the wilderness on the north side. Among them, the forest on the west side was the focus of the defense. There were many beasts living in the forest. It was also the militia's main training ground. According to the terrain, Ouyang Shuo commanded the 2nd fire to guard the north gate, while Shi Wansui commanded the 4th fire to guard the west gate. As for the east gate, Ouyang Shuo entrusted Lin Yi's big brother, an advanced fighter, Lin Yu, with 20 villagers who had learned martial arts from the dojo. In order to strengthen the defense of the west gate, the construction division built 2 arrow towers on both sides of the west gate. The most important one, the fierce fire matrix, was placed in the empty space in front of the west gate. The entire matrix was a square with a length of 100 meters. The 4 sides of the square were dug into a 2-meter wide and 2-meter deep trench. The trench was filled with diluted fierce fire oil, covered with wooden planks and covered with hay. On the surface, there was no trace of the fierce fire matrix. The rest of the fierce fire oil was placed in the empty space in front of the north gate. Because the north gate adopted a passive defense strategy, there was only a 200-meter-long trench. It was also filled with diluted fierce fire oil, covered with wooden planks and covered with hay. Other than the members of the crossbowmen, no one in the village went out. The ferry, shipyard, docks, Northern Twilight saltworks, logging yards, quarries, and mines outside the village had all stopped operating. This time, the monster attack was aimed at the village itself. These wild beasts were determined to destroy all the villages built in the wilderness. As for the properties outside the village, they didn't care. According to Gu Xiuan's previous suggestion, Ouyang Shuo had formed 2 large militia reserve teams. All the members of the militia reserve team had gone through the assault training of the crossbow cavalry team, and all of them were proficient in throwing javelins. The militia reserve team 1 consisted of a total of 120 people. The Director General of the Department of Land Reclamation, Zhao Daxian, was the temporary captain, while the quarry manager, Zheng Shanpao, was the temporary vice captain. Stationed at the west gate, responsible for the defense of the west side. The 2nd Militia Reserve Team had a total of 100 people. The temporary captain was Zhao Duong, the deputy director of the construction division, and Yuan Xiaoping, the head of the mining field, was the temporary deputy captain. They were stationed at the north gate and were responsible for the defense of the north side. The rest of the people, with the exception of the old, weak, women, and children, were all assigned to the wartime logistics department. There were nearly 200 people in the entire wartime logistics department. Cui Yingyu, the director of the Department of Supplies and Reserves, was the temporary director. The logistics department was divided into 4 groups. They were the medical rescue group, led by the senior doctor, Dr. Song, and led by his 4 apprentices and 20 women who were responsible for the treatment of the wounded. The material transportation group had a total of 60 people, led by Zhao Yufeng, the head of the lumber yard, who was responsible for the transportation of javelins and arrows. The collection group had a total of 80 people, led by the senior tailor, Mu Qingxi, who was responsible for the collection of wild beast carcasses and fur. The cooking group had 20 people, led by the senior chef, Gu Sanyang, who was responsible for the provision of food and drinking water. In this way, The manpower of the Shanghai village was used to its fullest. In Ouyang Shua's mind, the key to war was organization and logistics. Only by establishing a perfect and efficient organization and leadership system, coupled with a scientific and reasonable logistics system, would they be able to win the war. At 7:30 in the morning, all the villagers of the Shanghai village had finished their breakfast and rushed to their respective posts under the leadership of their respective captains. Ouyang Shua stood on the arrow tower on the left side of the north gate. Beside him stood the second squad leader of the cavalry team, Buttface. "Sir, when will the beast horde appear?" Buttface asked. "Soon. In at most half an hour, they will appear at the edge of the territory." At 8 o'clock sharp, a series of system announcements rang out. World announcement: mandatory global territory defense mission. Monster siege officially begins. The regional ranking, national ranking, and world ranking, these three ranking lists will be opened at the same time. I wish all the lords victory. World announcement: mandatory global territory defense mission. Monster siege officially begins. The regional ranking, national ranking, and world ranking, these three ranking lists will be opened at the same time. I wish all the lords victory. World announcement: mandatory global territory defense mission. Monster siege officially begins. The regional ranking, national ranking, and world ranking, these three ranking lists will be opened at the same time. I wish all the lords victory. In less than a minute, billowing smoke rose from the sentry tower in the distance. At the edge of the territory that Ouyang Shua could not see, thousands of wild dogs, led by the Wild Dog King, rushed out of the forest and charged toward the Shanghai village. Wild dogs were level 3 wild beasts and were one of the most numerous wild beasts in the wilderness. Elite wild dogs would level up to level 5, while the Wild Dog King would be a level 8 boss. The ferocious wild dogs had just stepped into the Shanghai village's territory when they were met with a head-on attack. Countless invisible traps were stepped on by the rash wild dogs. Each trap pit was 3 meters long, 1 meter wide, and 3 meters deep. The bottom of the pit was filled with sharp wooden wedges. The dense formation caused the wild dogs to suffer greatly. Often, one trap pit could bury 4 to 5 wild dogs. From the edge of the territory to the village, the wild dog journey was simply a history of blood and tears. They used their flesh and blood to fill up the traps they encountered along the way. When they finally saw the Shanghai village's gate, less than half of the nearly 2,000 wild dogs were left. Fortunately, not a single stray dog thought of running away along the way. From this, it could be seen how deep their resentment toward the human lords was. 400 meters away from the Shanghai village, the surviving wild dogs split into 2 groups, pouncing toward the north gate and the west gate respectively. As Ouyang Shua expected, the main force of the wild dogs, led by the Wild Dog King, pounced toward the west gate. The remaining 300 wild dogs, led by the elite wild dogs, took a detour and pounced toward the north gate. Under the fence of the north gate, the members of the 2nd Militia Reserve Team, led by Zhao Duong, stood in a line, waiting for the order to attack. There was a pile of javelins at the feet of each team member. Ouyang Shua stood on the archer tower, watching the wild dogs slowly approaching. When the wild dogs were only 150 meters away from the fence, he didn't hesitate to draw his bow and shoot an elite wild dog. His action was the order. The members of the cavalry team on the archer towers on both sides drew their bows and arrows, aimed at the elite wild dog, and shot a round of arrows. After a round of shooting, almost all of the elite wild dogs were injured. After Ouyang Shua shot the first arrow, he didn't shoot anymore. Instead, he stared closely at the wild dogs, calculating their distance. When the wild dogs were only 60 meters away from the fence, he didn't hesitate to wave the flag in his hand. Zhao Duong, who was below, kept staring at Ouyang Shua. When he saw him wave the flag, he immediately turned around and shouted, "Throw!" The team members immediately threw the javelins in their hands forward without hesitation. After throwing the first javelin, they immediately turned around and picked up the second javelin from the ground and threw it again without hesitation. They threw the javelins repeatedly. Within a short distance of 60 meters, the wild dogs were attacked by 3 rounds of javelins, and almost all of them were dead or injured. At this time, the cavalry of the second fire, led by Butt-Face, rushed out of the north gate on horseback and killed the surviving wild dogs. In less than 10 minutes, the wild dogs in the north were completely wiped out. At this time, Ouyang Shuo heard a series of system announcements. Region announcement. Shaojing village in Liuzhou district failed to resist the attack of the wild beasts, removed from China. Region announcement. Fugui village in Lianzhou district failed to resist the attack of the wild beasts, removed from China. Region announcement. Greenwater village in Guilin district failed to resist the attack of the wild beasts, removed from China. This was only the first wave of the wild beasts, but many villages could not resist it. They were attacked by the wild beasts, and their territories were removed from the list. After these players were resurrected, they could only choose to continue their gaming career in the individual adventure mode. They had no chance to play the Overlord mode anymore. He didn't have time to lament the fate of others. Ouyang Shuo ordered the logistics department to collect the wild dog corpses as soon as possible and retrieve as many javelins as possible. After that, he went to the West Gate alone to check on the situation there. By the time he reached the West Gate, the battle here was already coming to an end. There were nearly 700 wild dogs that attacked the West Gate, and they were eliminated so quickly mainly because of the cavalry that was lying in ambush in the mining area. After they received the signal from the sentry tower, they waited until the wild dogs were about to surround the West Gate. Suddenly, a team of 30 cavalry charged out from behind the wild dogs, with Lin Yi as the leader, and surrounded the wild dogs. With the cooperation from the inside and outside, they finally eliminated the wild dogs. The Wild Dog King was killed by Shi Wansui, and it dropped a small booklet. Ouyang Shuo took it from Shi Wansui, and it was a book called Colored Silkworm Breeding Technique Manual. It was a good thing, but he didn't have the mulberry leaves, and he didn't have the silkworm's silkworm eggs, so he couldn't use it in a short period of time. After this wave of attack, Ouyang Shuo leveled up to level 22, and it was like he was riding a rocket. It must be known that after reaching level 20, it was even more difficult to level up. Seeing that the West Gate was intact, Ouyang Shuo was relieved. After leaving the West Gate, he went to the East Gate. There were only 30 wild dogs attacking the East Gate, and Lin Yu naturally didn't feel any pressure, and he dealt with them easily. After inspecting the East and West Gates, Ouyang Shuo didn't dare to delay and immediately returned to the North Gate. According to his prediction, the second wave of the wild beast was coming soon. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.